guarantee it, lock it in. There's going to be one guy that gets on track offensively tonight. Who is it for you?
I'll go Gorman. I think Gorman could get a slider that hangs in the zone, crushes it, and that's the swing that gets him back on track.
Kyle Nelson answers the Chevy call to the bullpen for the Diamondbacks. Nolan Gorman the first, and he unloads. Deep right, track, wall, walk-off winner on the first pitch.
Probably the biggest win of the season, I think. In that fashion, I think it's even better. You know, guys are coming in here with dramatic fashion, vibes are high, and so for Gorman to step up in that situation there and, you know, pull through, like I said, probably the biggest win of the year.
Alongside Alex Ferrario and Nostradamus over there, Tanner Hendrickson. I'm Brandon Kiley. You've got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. That audio courtesy of Bally Sports Midwest as, thank God, the St. Louis Cardinals come through last night with a come-from-behind victory. Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Gorman, the two heroes from the game. You love to see it. T-Bone, normally I would kick it over to Alex Ferrario right now. I'm going to kick it over to you because you saw this coming. What'd you think of your boy Gorman coming through in that spot?
Yeah, that's the moment that he needed, you know. And look, maybe or maybe not, I was thinking out loud in the group chain of, hey, do you pinch hit for Walker here if so left on right matchup?
Hey, man, we don't bring that to the table here.
You know, it may or may not happen. I'm willing to bring that forward. But, look, hopefully that's the moment that gets Nolan Gorman going. And we've talked about it. He has the potential to be a kind of Kyle Schwarber-esque player that can change the game in one pitch and truly demolish it, and he's going to go through stretches where he hits 150. But he's also going to go through stretches where he goes on a torrid pace and he's starting to slug the baseball. Hopefully that's the moment for Nolan Gorman, and hopefully that's the game for the offense as a whole that will really take off. And to see Gorman do that against a lefty is another good sign as well.
I was flipping back and forth, so when it would go to a commercial, I'd go to the hockey game, and by the time I flipped back, I had already heard Chip Carey going, and Gorman takes it to deep right. Like, what the hell happened? And then watching the replay of it, man, there was so much frustration that came out of that swing from Nolan Gorman. I'm surprised that ball didn't land in Ballpark Village. And for him, for Paul Goldschmidt, and really that offense, you hope that was the slump buster for them.
Please. Because
there was so much pent-up aggression in every one of those at-bats. The first 3-4 innings of that game, I was thinking the same outcome was going to take place of this team's not scoring another run. Brandon Pfaadt is going to go out there and have his day, and then we're going to be talking about this again tomorrow. And then once you got that Paul Goldschmidt home run, it felt like everybody took a sigh of relief. The one for me, and this is a really odd, memorable moment from it, but I didn't even think the slump buster for Paul Goldschmidt was the home run. I felt like it was in the ninth when he had to run out that ground ball to first base. The entire dugout was laughing and was waving the safe sign because they knew Paul Goldschmidt was winded running that one down. That felt like the moment of, okay, we got this now, guys.
I know people laughed the other day when I brought it up of Paul Goldschmidt coming through in a big spot. What was that, in the 8th inning? Yeah, bottom of the 8th against Milwaukee on Sunday. Now, they didn't end up scoring. They got shut out in that game. It was 2-0, but it was Arenado on first, Goldie coming to the plate. You're going up against Peguero in that spot. He ends up having that just bloop single to center field. I thought that was a really big moment for him because you could have made the case in that spot to pinch hit Herrera for Paul Goldschmidt. Now, nobody would do it. There is not a manager in Major League Baseball that would ever do that at this point in the season. And if you would, you've got some serious questions to ask about your faith or belief in Paul Goldschmidt for the foreseeable future. They didn't. They shouldn't have. And then Goldie comes through in that spot. He gets the hit. Fly out, get out of the inning. Nobody scores. But it was a big moment potentially for him. Felt like maybe that's something he can build off of because at that point, dude, he had just been striking out on everything. Nothing was dropping for him. It was just a lot of bad surrounding his results. So you get that to build off of in his final at-bat of the day against Milwaukee. And then yesterday you come in and he finally sees some real success. His first home run since opening day. I think it was his first extra base hit since opening day, if I'm not mistaken. He ends up getting that single as well, Alex. He's able to leg that one out. And then for Gorman to come through in that spot, you just had to have it. You had to have it in that spot. Did you guys believe it was going to happen, though? Because I absolutely did not.
No.
I had zero faith in that moment that Gorman was about to come through. Zero. Did you guys?
No, I didn't think they were going to tie it. I thought when it was 3-2, and I was thinking, okay, well, that's all that this is going to be. This one is going to end in a 3-2 loss, and you're going to be talking about, cool, they had it, but they had the chance to capitalize. Goldie hit the home run. It was 3-3, still wasn't confident. I really thought Nolan Gorman was going to hit it into a grounder, and we were going into extras, and it was going to fall apart like the last time that they went to extras.
Yeah, I didn't expect Gorman to be the guy to walk it, especially when they went to the lefty-lefty matchup. And it wasn't like this is a, kind of a good matchup for Arizona. That was a great matchup for Arizona. You've got Gorman that's struggling, Kyle Nelson, who held opponents to like a 150 batting average. Like, I thought they're like, okay, this is a tough spot for Gorman. Like, you hope that maybe he draws a walk or gets like a little bleeder, not a shot that is a measuring tape shot to right field. But no, I had no faith in Gorman coming through.
Here's what it sounded like inside of the clubhouse yesterday. First, Ollie Marmol talking about Goldie and Gorman being the two players that found a way to come through.
Those are the two guys we've been talking about, and the two guys that have been working hard and not seeing some of the rewards of that, right? And Goldie goes backside, which is when he's going the way we want him to go. I mean, he's driving the ball through the middle of the field towards right center, and that's a big home run there. And then left on left, Gorman, last year had a decent amount of at-bats against left-handers and did well. Over an 800 OPS, drove the baseball, and that right there was a really good sign of it.
And here's Lars Nootbaar, who also talked after the game about his faith, his belief, and how it never wavered in those two players.
Those are two guys that I don't think anybody in this club I was really worried about. Goldie obviously with a Hall of Fame resume, and then, Gorman well on his way to, being one of the best players in the game. You know it's going to come around. It's just a matter of when.
Alex, I don't know how much stock you put in this stuff. Normally, I'm somebody that kind of pushes it off to the side, frankly. But
normally,
when I was down there at the game on Sunday, talking to Ollie, talking to the guys after the game, that was a pretty crushing defeat on Sunday to lose the way that they did. And it felt different than it did last year. T-Bone, you remember walking into that clubhouse a number of times. You could hear a pin drop a lot of the time. It felt defeated. And it felt that way early. Like, it wasn't, I'm not talking June, July. I'm talking pretty early on last year. You could tell, the vibes in here are awful, like just so bad. And so yesterday when we asked the question, what's different this time? Why does it feel different now than it did at this point last year when they went in the wrong direction? Part of it is like, man, the clubhouse feels different. It feels like they believe, and they don't need Adam Wainwright to come up with his arts and crafts projects to show them that they are a good baseball team, right?
That.
Like, they don't need that this time around. They actually genuinely, truly believe in their heart of hearts, this is a good baseball team, and they're gonna get it figured out eventually. Now, that will go away. If they don't get it turned around, if this thing, they go on a 10-game losing streak, they're 10-23 after the first 33 games of the season, just like they were last year, like, there will come a moment in time in which you cease to have that kind of a belief in yourself, because the results are the results, and it's hard to believe when you're not seeing them. But it's not there yet. And I do think there is value in that. And I think that's, for me, the biggest difference between this year and last year is just the feeling around the team. And I understand if you're a fan and you're like, I don't care about that, show me the wins. I get it, dude. I promise you. I understand that. But that would be, for me, my biggest difference between this year and last, Alex.
Yeah, well, and let's be frank about it. Last year, the entire clubhouse was turning on each other. Jack Flaherty was calling his catcher an outfielder. Tyler O'Neill was getting called out by Ollie Marmol. Yep. You had pitchers that didn't understand the pitch that was being asked of them. Like, everybody was, old guys didn't like young guys. Nobody was on board with each other. So it would make sense. And yeah, that is absolutely a different scenario than last season. Everything about last year seems very different from this year, with the exception of that record. And that's why you look at now, and if the vibe check was good from your perspective, BK, and then you had that performance, you got to have that be your rally point.
Absolutely.
Because if this is just a one and done, because that was the other problem with the Cardinals last year. They would be in the middle of a rut. They would get one good game, and you'd say, cool, bounce point. That's it right there. And then you would lay another dud. If you just keep getting one good game and then laying duds after it, You're never going to turn this thing around. At some point, you have to string the momentum that you built up from last night's game, the last night's offense with Goldschmidt and Gorman, and you have to say, cool, let's find a way to bag that and put it into the next 6 games so that we can put ourselves in a better position.
I would also add this. So I was listening to the Fast Lane yesterday, and they were talking about Ollie's comments from after the game. And one of the things that got a little bit of publicity was his back and forth with Derek Gould.
Oh, yeah, Derek, he got a little pissy.
He did. And I thought some of it was understandable. Derek asked a question that was basically like, what can you do as a manager to artificially increase the offense, right? Like, is there ways you can go about it to get a little creative? Can you hit and run? Can you steal bases? Can you have them lay down a sack bunt, like all of these different things, right? And Ollie was like, Derek, we're doing those things. Like, are you not seeing this? And I kind of understand where Ollie was coming from in this situation because, dude, I looked it up yesterday, the Cardinals, and this is not an analytic. It's not analytics. Stop calling everything analytics, guys.
So analytics.
They lead Major League Baseball in productive outs. There's nothing analytical about that. In fact, analytics tell you don't do that. That is bad. You should not lead the league in analytics or in productive outs. But
an unproductive out is a base hit. For those that don't know.
No, it's not.
What?
The Cardinals last year were horrible in that area. They did not have sac flies at all. Like, they were one of the worst teams in the league at it. They did not have sacrifice hits in terms of bunts. They did not move runners over. They were one of the worst teams in the league at taking the extra base. Like, all of these things, bottom of the barrel numbers for the Cardinals. This year, they are at or near the top of the National League in every single one of those categories. And so, like, the reason I'm bringing this up is because they have the other stuff that should artificially boost your offense a bit, but you can't lean on that too heavily. That needs to be something that's there in case you only get 1 home run in a game, or in case you only get a couple of doubles in a game. And then you can use that to get in those 2, maybe 3 runs in any given game. But the power is what you have to rely on. This team is based on guys that are gonna hit the crap out of the baseball, and they haven't done it enough. This was the first home run in 9 games for the Cardinals. That's what the problem is, guys. The runners in scoring position, absolutely an issue, Alex. We got into that yesterday. You're 100% correct that that's a problem. But it's like talking about my car that doesn't have an engine in it and saying my rims aren't the ones that I would like on it. Yes, of course, the rims, we could get to that eventually. But the engine not being inside of the car is the bigger issue right now as to why we can't drive down 40 later on this afternoon. Their engine is the power. And yesterday, we finally saw that come together. When you have the power in this offense, you're going to see them be able to go out there and have some success. But until they get it consistently, this is going to be what we get. Is a lot of up and down.
And this is why, if you want to call it good vibes, the veteran leadership, yeah, I call that a bogus. I think they're a more talented team, and they understand that compared to last year where the pitching was struggling, pitching will go through ruts, but that wasn't a rut last year. I think they knew early on that, man, this pitching's just not going to bounce back. Jack has no idea where the ball's going. Wayno's old. Montgomery's the only guy that we can rely on. And I think at some point, I don't remember who else, Matz wasn't pitching very well. Like, that kind of stuff is a lot harder to turn around. But when you look at the offense and you had guys of a Paul Goldschmidt with his resume, you've got a guy like a Brendan Donovan, even though he's struggling, he's still getting on base. Offenses slumps are a lot different than a pitching staff that slumps. And I think that this team is just more talented on the pitching side, which is buying time for the offense. And we all know at some point the offense is going to hit. And that's why I think the vibes are different. I think it is a matter of, okay, this is a lot different than what it was last year because the pitching is keeping us in games. And we all believe at some point we're all going to hit. We don't believe that Paul Goldschmidt just fell off the face of the earth. And at some point, he is going to turn it around.
Can I... 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. I'm getting yelled at because I'm mentioning the productive outs. A productive out is advancing any base runner with an out, understood, so sack fly, sack hit, advancing them when there's 0 outs on the scoreboard. That's a productive out. Another version of productive outs would be driving a base runner in to score a run when there are fewer than 2 outs. That would be considered a productive out. That means you drove in the run. So you're scoring runs that way.
Sounds analytic-y to me.
This is as old school baseball gets. Get them on, get them over, drive them in. That's what I'm talking about here. And one of the problems for last year's offense, and the text line told me this, and they were right about it, is that they didn't have enough of that stuff. They were overly reliant on home runs. It was either we're hitting home runs or we're scoring zero. Like, we have no other way to move the runners over or to get them in. What I'm saying is this year, the foundation of what could be a pretty solid baseball team is there. To T-Bone's point about the pitching, got that. The defense is so much better. It is not even funny than it was a year ago. The fundamentals of the base running, for the most part, there's been a couple of weird moments, but for the most part, been pretty good so far this year. You got a little bit more speed on the bases. And you're moving runners over, even though I am conceding and agreeing with everybody. Look at the box scores. They're not hitting them in enough. What I'm saying is, when you have all of that available to you, and these are ways that you can keep yourself in games, what allows you to then win the games is what we saw yesterday, the power. When you have that other stuff, the power becomes super important and relevant. When you have none of that other stuff, you're so far behind in games that it don't matter if you're hitting a couple of home runs in any given game, because you're out. You're done. Your pitching stunk, defense stinks. You don't have enough ways to win. And over the course of 162, you're going to see that, and we saw it last year. So the reason why I'm bringing this stuff up is because it is super relevant to the 2024 Cardinals that they're good at this other stuff. And if they find a way to get Gorman and Goldie and Walker going when it comes to their power, guys, I'm not telling you they're going to be the 2004 Cardinals, even though Alex mentions that every day. But what I am saying is they could be something similar to the 2013 Cardinals. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll get to Jeremy Rutherford, Blues Insider for The Athletic. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. The YouTube chat is up and running. It's The Graveyard. YouTube.com/101ESPN STL is where you can go to find that. Coming up next, I personally am very much enjoying the Lance Lynn experience. Are you guys? We'll talk about it next here on 101 ESPN.
did his job. I mean, first time through, a little more than first time through, just used the 3 fastballs, the sinker cutter and the 4-seam, and then mixed in some other stuff there in the 4th inning towards the end with 2 outs in the 5th. But did a really nice job.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm VK. I'm enjoying the Lance Lynn experience, guys. I told Alex going into the offseason, hey, Lance Lynn, better swing and miss rate last year than Shohei Ohtani. And Alex did nothing but all offseason make fun of me for citing that statistic. Hey, Alex, you want to talk about his swing and miss stuff so far this year, my friend?
But Shohei Ohtani doesn't have any swing and miss stuff.
I'm not comparing it to Shohei at this point, but it's been freaking excellent. So far this year, if you're looking at what we're getting out of Lance Lynn, he's got a 2.8 ERA. He's striking out basically everybody he's going up against. Now, he gets himself into trouble, and that's part of the Lance Lynn experience, and it's not always going to go the way that it has. There are going to be moments where instead of getting out of a bases-loaded jam with 1 out, striking out the next 2 batters, he's going to give up a home run in that spot, and it's going to look a little bit more ugly.
Basically, Lance Lynn should be the poster child for Tums because he gives me a lot of backup when he's on the mound.
Totally fair, understandable. I get that completely. That being said, man, he's a lot of fun. He's a lot of fun, and he's doing exactly what they asked of him whenever they signed him in the offseason. Go out there, stabilize the rotation. He's not going to give you 7 innings. Like, Gibson is here literally to just eat as many innings as humanly possible.
6 runs given up in 1 inning. Just keep going there, Kyle.
Just keep throwing pitches. Just take as many pitches as you possibly can. Get us out of this game with using as few relievers as possible.
Poor guy's career's over after this season.
Lynn could start a playoff game, and you could probably get away with it. And that's the difference, but I'm serious. I think Lynn could totally be a number 4 starter for you in the playoffs.
Hey,
get 5 innings out of him with this bullpen, and you'd be fine.
If you put 3 options in front of me right now, Lynn, Matz, and Gibson to start a playoff, I would go Lynn every day of the week.
I'm not disagreeing. I'm just telling you right now, I'm going to be looking to upgrade over Lance Lynn for the playoffs.
Lance Lynn has a better swing and miss rate right now than Corbin Burns.
Yeah, he sucks.
It's been
What
really
has Corbin
impressive.
Burns ever done?
Alex, how are you enjoying the Lance Lynn experience?
Well, first of all, I love the Lance Lynn experience in terms of when he walks off of the mound because my dude just mother F's every single person in the world as he walks back to the dugout. He is so angry. I needed to chat with him, away from the field and figure out like what I need to do to bottle up that energy. But here's the thing. I'm enjoying the result. I am not enjoying the product on the field. Like, as I'm watching it, I'm going, oh, well, this is ugly. Oh, this is going to blow up real fast. And then with 3 guys on and 1 out, and the dude is behind in count 2-0, Lance Lynn just decides to heave back 4 fastballs. The next thing you know, he's striking out. I don't know how he's doing it. I don't think it can sustain.
Pitching, dude. He's pitching.
I don't know ball. I was told that last year. I've been told that a lot. I need to stick to puck. But here's the thing. He's getting it done. It feels very, and T-Bone, we were talking about this in the office, it feels very John Ganty to where it's like, how are you finding, like, you are Harry Houdining the hell out of this game, but you're doing it. And now it feels like, are we going to get like the 2021 Chicago White Sox Lance Lynn, where he's going to finish with a sub-3 ERA and be like, whoa, where'd this guy come from? Or is the bottom going to fall out real fast and we're talking like 5+ ERA? That's what I just don't know. But I'm going to live in the moment. I've been told that I need to do that more. Lessens the anger.
Would you be okay with 2022 Chicago White Sox Lance Lynn? Because that guy had
absolutely.
Right around a 4 ERA. And I think that feels more similar to where you're at right now.
I'd like more innings, obviously.
That's so like through 21 games that year.
Yeah.
But yeah, like let's say he starts 30 games for you, has around a 4 ERA.
That is a steal. That's what I was hoping that they would have gotten out of their like number 2 starter if they went to the market. So yeah, if you give me that, that's great. Like I said,
I think the 2.8 ERA is a total mirage. That's not going to sustain the way that he's been pitching lately.
I think
I think you could get a 4 with the way that he's been pitching.
I still think the swing and miss stuff is a mirage. I don't know how he's getting away with it
for years.
But man, guys are falling for that really easily.
It's so funny because like the results are there, and yet I just every time I look at my phone, I go, "Oh, who's on the mound? Lance? Oh, damn it, Lance Lynn starting today." Maybe I would not have enjoyed the Blake Snell experience because it's very Blake Snell-esque to where there is swing and miss. Granted, he's just throwing a fastball, and he doesn't throw it as hard. And then he walks guys, and he finds himself in trouble. And then he, to Alex's point, throws down the smoke bomb and is able to escape out of the whole jam.
Watch me disappear.
For whatever reason, I just don't enjoy the Lance Lynn experience. But to his point, like, He's doing the job. He's doing what the Cardinals asked for to get out of their number 4 starter, which he has done. He's providing swing and miss. He's doing a good job of keeping them in games, even though he is getting in danger. He's keeping them in these games and buying time for the offense to get going. And he's got swing and miss, and he's going 5 innings basically every time. Like, he's the perfect number 4 starter. But for whatever reason, I just don't enjoy the experience, and I don't know why.
I personally enjoyed the guy that outran him, Corbin Carroll, to first base. Dude. I thought Lance Lynn was going to heave a ball at him in his head the next time they went face to face.
That was a tough look.
Lance Lynn was not happy after that. He was like, "You showed me up."
Waino was able to beat Ellie De La Cruz to first last year, and
He's
was
got a longer stride though.
Still.
Lance doesn't have that stride.
He was still in bubblegum last year.
Lance was still setting his follow through, and he's like, I can't get out of this faster.
That was tough. That was a tough look for Lance. All right, the other thing that we saw last night was the Cardinals bullpen, which has been spectacular. And I know they've had a couple of blow-ups this year. For the most part, those guys have been great. Ollie Marmol was asked about it yesterday. Here's what he had to say.
Our pen was pretty filthy. Fernandez continues to show. I mean, that's real stuff for you. Kittredge did his job, went back out there, got the ground ball. JoJo did his job, and Helsley kept it there. So really, really good work.
Couldn't tell from the tone if Ollie was excited or not.
He was, first of all. Andrew Kittredge is amazing. I love him. I love watching that guy. He is a softball beer league pitcher, Alex. His motion looks like he could be throwing a baseball while drinking a beer, and yet it's 95. And it's exactly where he wants it to be every single time. He's striking out 11 per 9. He basically never gives up hits. He doesn't walk anybody. It's remarkable to watch. JoJo's been great. Everything that we saw last year appears to have been real. Ryan Fernandez, he mentioned him there. You have something there, man. And oh, by the way, I haven't mentioned Keenan Middleton, who has not yet thrown a pitch for the Cardinals in a regular season game, and he was expected to be in this mix of your high leverage relievers. The Cardinals have got bad version of Giovanni Gallegos so far this year, and it hasn't mattered for the most part. That speaks highly of what they were able to do in the offseason. Hey, if you got criticism of Mo, I get it. That's fair. What he did in the bullpen, and we said it at the time, Alex, he constructed this in a way where he gave himself options. And that's what they lacked in previous seasons. It's good to see them coming through in a meaningful way. By the way, I didn't even mention Helsley, who's been really good so far.
Well, and the starting pitching has benefited from this, because if your pitching was like last year, I think we'd be talking differently about your bullpen, because they'd be used a lot. You'd be talking about some damaged goods out there, and you'd be in a bad situation. I do think Ollie's grown a little bit in terms of how he uses guys, and you're seeing the effectiveness. Tell me if this comp is off, because I was thinking of Andrew Kittredge, and the guy that came to mind was Pat Neshek for the Cardinals. Because now I know the pitch, because Neshek was like a submarine arm, and that's not what Kittredge is. But like Kittredge, you're kind of going back 2 years ago to looking at what he was and be like, oh, could he get back to that? That's what Neshek was when the Cardinals brought him in, where it was like, maybe we could get back to what he used to be. And if I'm not mistaken, that year Neshek was an all-star. Like, I kind of feel like you're getting some Andrew Kittredge stuff out of this, which that's massive for a Cardinals team to have a all-star bullpen arm that you didn't expect to be an all-star bullpen arm.
I think there are differences in the way they go about it, but if you're just talking about like effectiveness of a guy that can come in and basically pitch in any role that you need, strikeout stuff, I could see that. I could definitely see, in terms of the role that they are filling for the Cardinals, some similarities there, especially them both coming in when they were older.
Yeah, that was the other thing that came in,
that can be in any situation, totally cool with it. I could see some similarities in that regard for sure.
Yeah, and I think the best part about this bullpen is everybody's got swing and miss. Yep. I mean, now that Palante's down in the minor leagues working on things, he was like really the only guy that did not have swing and miss. Everybody else to this point, though, has some of that. I mean, listen to these strikeouts per 9. I know, and Liberatore,
and he looks decent at least.
I think he's been good.
Yeah, I think there's still a little bit more swing and miss to his game, but the strikeouts per 9, Helsley 9.8, Jojo Herrero 10.3, Andrew Kittredge 11, Gallegos, we mentioned his struggles, 14 strikeouts per 9, so he's got swing and miss, and then Fernandez at 12 strikeouts per 9. Like, this bullpen has been Ollie's dream for the last 3 seasons, where it is everybody's got swing and miss. So if you do need to go to the pen, let's say like Lynn has to leave with runners at the corners and 1 out, or second and third and 1 out, you can get the much needed punch out, rather than typically where they would have to bring the infield in, pitch to contact, play the Babbitt game. They don't have that anymore, and they've got legitimate weapons. And long as this bullpen can stay healthy, you get Middleton into the mix, this I'm willing to declare this in the first month of the season. This is a playoff caliber bullpen that can really have success.
I think everybody's going to be in the circle of trust other than Giovanni Gallegos.
I was about to say, I think tomorrow we do a new circle of trust, potentially. Yeah. Maybe we wait to do that until Thursday, coming off of this series against the Diamondbacks. Yeah, see Nick Robertson pitch, and
he won't be in, man.
I'm just going to say it right now, Fernandez has a real shot, depending on what happens over the next couple of days, to be a nominee.
As long as he's not nominated.
I'll nominate Giovanni Gallegos.
If he can fix his home run issue...
He wasn't in the first place, man.
All he's got to do, fix his home run issue, and we'll be all right when it comes to Gio. It's a big issue, though. Coming up next, Jeremy Rutherford, Blues Insider for 101 ESPN.
Jared Henderson here with a Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. The Cardinals able to walk off the Arizona Diamondbacks last night thanks to a 2-run homer by Nolan Gorman as they win 5-3. Game 2 of the series is tonight. 6:45 will be first pitch. Tommy Henry gets the start for Arizona. Steven Matz will get the start for St. Louis. The Sports Update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK, and we're happy to go to the 101 ESPN hotline to be joined by our friend and the Blues analyst for The Athletic. He's Jeremy Rutherford joining us here on the show. JR, we appreciate the time as always, man. How you doing today?
Anytime, boys. BK sent me a picture with Luca last night and said, "Can you join us?" I said, "How do I turn you down with this cute little kiddo?"
I need to start sending you pictures of my kids, JR, and ask for stuff or something. Like, hey, JR, here's a picture of my daughter on the trampoline. Now give me some scoops on the Blues head coach.
Yeah.
I'll just send a selfie of myself to ask.
Ooh,
ask for stuff. Alex, you put out your Venmo address the other day on the podcast and got a Venmo.
Dude, so quick story. So we were, no, I didn't ask for the Venmo. So we were joking around. I was talking about how the Blues season was successful on the Last Minute Blues podcast, which you should check out with me, JR, and Donnie.
It's really good. Donnie does a great job.
Whoa, JR, shots fired by this
JR's
guy.
Also really good.
But anyway, so I went on my spiel, and afterwards, JR was like, man, that was incredible. He's like, you should tell the Blues department to cut that and use that for their season ticket sales. And I said, no, just send me your season ticket down payment. And somebody sent me $1. And I sent it back to him.
I mean, $1, you should have just accepted it.
I did actually accept it, but then I sent him $1 from me.
Okay.
And I'm like, damn. So I did get money off of that. Way to go, Alex.
All
High
right,
five.
JR, let's get into this. So yesterday, the first head coach of this offseason was officially announced. Lindy Ruff making his return to Buffalo.
That's rough.
JR, the only thing that I ask of the Blues is that they're not going to make one of these retread hires. Tell me that that's not going to be the case.
I don't think so. Yeah, could you imagine that? And I'm trying to think of the equivalent. I've got a ton of respect for Ken Hitchcock, one of the greatest minds I've ever been around. But what do you think the reaction would be if they did say your new Blues coach, Ken Hitchcock? So
I'd be on board with that. Just don't bring in Bruce Boudreau, please.
a little surprising with Lindy Ruff, but obviously Pagula, the owner there, let him go, and now they're going to bring him back and try to get that team going. So with the Blues, I don't think there's going to be a retread hire. Guys, listening to Doug Armstrong at that press conference last week, there were two notable things if you're thinking about Joel Quenneville being the next coach. He said that, we want to coach. We're not at that Stanley Cup caliber level yet where we're looking for a coach to come in and add 3 or 4% and get us over the hump to be cup contenders. He said we need a guy who's going to be understanding of the young kids' mistakes, so on and so forth. To me, that doesn't speak to Quenneville. And then secondly, he said we expect to have a coach by the draft, if not sooner. And I don't think you can put a timeline on when Quenneville could be reinstated, if he is reinstated. So if you're thinking about Joel Quenneville, those are two things that pointed in a different direction. The names I've heard in the past couple weeks, David Carl, we talked about him at the University of Denver, just 34 years old. But the one name that I kind of poo-pooed a week or two ago in an article saying don't get your hopes up, but I've heard differently in the past 10 to 14 days that, who knows, it could be a possibility, is Jim Montgomery. And obviously he's in Boston. He's in that series 1-1, the Bruins and Toronto. I think he has 1 year left on his deal, but I do think that, his family is from here. They'd like to get back to St. Louis at some point. There is an opening potentially with the Blues head coaching vacancy if they don't stick with Drew Bannister. And obviously Montgomery is a guy who works well with the young kids, and he's got a great relationship with the veterans. So I think that even if it's a small possibility, it's a possibility.
JR, is there precedent for that? You understand this league and kind of the ins and outs of it more maybe than we do even, but when you think about Jim Montgomery potentially leaving an organization like Boston that is in a winning window currently for a place like St. Louis that I think it's fair to say is not necessarily in that same window with a year left on his contract, can you think of a precedent for such a move?
No, not off the top of my head. And I don't want to necessarily slam the brakes on it, but if there's a year left, and coaches' contracts are kept pretty secretive, and I've been trying to do some digging in the past day or two, but I think that with Montgomery, I believe it was a 3-year deal when he went to Boston.
That's
and
what
he's
they
in year
announced
2.
publicly.
Yeah, how would he get out of that, JR?
Yeah, that's what they announced publicly. No, it wouldn't be a situation where he'd get out of it. I mean, they could hold him to the contract. He could want to stay. Like, let's not, I don't want to move this too far ahead where he wants to get out of Boston and wants to come to St. Louis next year. I mean, this could be a thing that happens a couple years down the road. And especially with the success they've had there in Boston, if they win this playoff series against Toronto, continue to move forward. But one thing Doug Armstrong did say last week is I'd like to talk to coaches who are potentially in the playoffs right now. And there are a couple other ones when you look at Sheldon Keefe or Rod Brindamore with Toronto and Carolina. But the name that continues to stick out to me is Jim Montgomery, because I know Doug Armstrong would look at that as a perfect fit.
JR, what are your thoughts on Sheldon Keefe? Because I'll just give you my quick ones. I think he'd be an interesting one because he's had success at the junior level, at the American Hockey League level. Obviously, he's had success in Toronto, but he also got the best out of William Nylander, who was viewed as just an offensive forward, who is now an all-around player.
Yeah, and I don't know that you can completely connect him to the playoff failures in Toronto, even though he's been the head coach of that group for a long time now. A lot of people look at the roster construction, paying 3 or 4.
Goaltending is a problem.
Yeah, goaltending's been a huge issue. But paying 3 or 4 superstars big-time money and not necessarily having that grit around them to make the playoff run. So, I think that Keefe could be a guy that you look at. I don't know that he'd be 1, 2, or 3 on my list if I'm Doug Armstrong.
We're talking to Jeremy Rutherford, Blues insider for The Athletic, joining us here on BK and Ferrario. Be sure to follow him on Twitter as well, at JP Rutherford. JR, you put out your report card this week for both the forwards and then today the defenseman, the head coach, and the GM as well, with Doug Armstrong getting in there. I do want to ask you about the Doug Armstrong report card grade that you gave for him so far, or for the job that he did this season. You gave him a C- for this year. Tell us a little bit about why. Why did you go with a C- for Army?
Yeah, and I debated this long and hard. And, when you're doing these report cards, there's a lot of guys that you're putting a lot of thought into, and certainly you have to do it with the general manager because it's going to get a lot of attention. Look, a couple years ago, I went A with Doug Armstrong. Last year, I went F, and I felt that the F was warranted. We all know what happened last year. With this year, as I sat down to think about, okay, what are the reasons why you would give them this grade, whether you decide to go with a D or go with a C, I just kept coming back to the fact, BK, that these long-term contracts that have put him in this situation were 2 and 3 years ago, and I've graded him on that already. And, yes, you do have a situation with Kevin Hayes. You bring him in. It didn't work. But I think there were more positives than there were a negative with a Hayes-type contract. Look, he tried to trade Torrey Krug, and then you have a situation, Kapanen and Brandt didn't work out, but those were last year's deals. That's not this year. So when you look at this year, you had a team that was in a retool finish just a few points out of a playoff spot, and you have a prospect pool that's looking pretty good right now. I mean, we're talking about the Dvorskys and the Snuggeruds and so on and so forth. So, I thought D+, but then I decided in the end to go with the C- because I think, the work was average. That's what you do with the C in the grading scale. And I think that there are some positives to look forward to. And bottom line, I can't continue to keep grading Doug Armstrong on some of these things we've been beaten to death for 2 or 3 years.
What would he need to do this offseason, JR, to move it above a C?
Well, I think, Alex, he's going to have to do a lot of work. And I think that you look at the possibilities, it's going to be tough. Like, I have been critical of Doug Armstrong in the past, but, I've never covered an executive who's able to sometimes pull off what you think is the impossible. And it's not for the one thing Doug does is he turns over every single stone. So every player that we're talking about moving, every player that we're talking about potentially acquiring for the St. Louis Blues, I'm sure he's had a conversation about it. So, do you look at second line center? Does Dvorsky come in and handle that? Is that asking too much of a 19-year-old? I think that's a problem that they need to address. And then I think the defense. And, I gave Colton Parayko an A+. I gave Nick Leddy an A. I thought they were outstanding this year. They played the most 5-on-5 minutes of any pair in the entire league. But Doug Armstrong, to get that grade higher than a C next year, Alex, I think he's going to have to address that middle pair with Krug and Falk, who I gave both of those guys a D-.
JR, final one from me, and this actually just came out from Daily Faceoff. It looks like USA Hockey is going to bring back the coaching staff that they had last year for this upcoming World Juniors, which means David Carl is going to be their head coach. Do you think that takes him out of the Blues head coach conversation, because Carl would be coaching the World Juniors the same time that hockey would be being played?
Well, I suppose, and I didn't see that headline yet.
It just popped up right now.
Yeah, and perhaps, Doug Armstrong knows this already. Maybe David Carl has already told him, I've got a great situation here in Denver. So, yeah, if you're coaching World Juniors, that'd definitely be tough to be coaching an NHL team at that time. I think what Doug Armstrong said, he said that the list is really thin, and Drew Bannister's on that list. We did ask him, does the coach need to have NHL experience? He said no. That leads you to believe that a college coach could be in that mix. And then I'll go back to Jim Montgomery. I think Doug Armstrong would be head over heels if, for whatever reason, Jim Montgomery, even if he has a year left on his contract, it's not this year, maybe it's the year after, if he could somehow bring Monty back to St. Louis.
Monty comes here, Berube goes to Boston.
Kachuk to St. Louis with Chikrin.
That'd be great.
What an offseason.
Frederick comes back here to St. Louis and
Pat
package
Maroon.
deal with Montgomery.
Pat Maroon, too. He's in Boston right now.
Yeah.
But bring Pasternak. Bring Pasternak. Just bring the Boston Bruins with you.
Do a Marchand?
No, he stays there. We got Neighbors.
Okay.
Neighbors is better.
It's just amazing how much these guys move around. I mean, who would have thought Krug in St. Louis during that series, and now Monty in Boston and Maroon in Boston, and all the movable parts here in the past couple of years. It's been pretty fun to watch.
Hey, JR, appreciate the time as always, man. We'll certainly be following all of your great work over at The Athletic. We'll talk with you again next week.
Sounds good, boys. Thanks.
Got it. Jeremy Rutherford, always appreciate his time here on BK and Ferrario. I do find it to be really interesting. Like, if that Monty stuff is real, that's the guy that you got to hire.
He's got to. They're going to have to fire him.
Or they decide it's a mutual parting of ways kind of a thing,
if
right?
you're Boston, just like we talk about in the NFL with the draft pick, like if you're Boston, I get you don't want to be here, and guess what? We've got one more year. That's one more year of us going to the playoffs and being a Stanley Cup favorite.
They might say, listen, if you want to go, we've got good alternatives. We believe in our infrastructure. I mean, and I was joking, but also serious. Like, Berube would be a great coach for the Boston Bruins.
I can't wait to see where he goes.
He would be an excellent fit up there. So if that's if they decided, hey, Monty, you want to leave, this is the offseason where we actually have real candidates out there that we think would be good. Hell, Carl. Like, if Carl decided, I need to go to the right situation, you know what could be a great situation for him? Boston, where they've got a ready-made team that is ready to go. So I could see it. But, man, that would be one of the bigger coaching storylines that I can remember in the NHL.
If that happens, that's the best thing that could happen to the St. Louis Blues.
100%.
And I don't know where you guys stand, but for me, that expedites this retool faster, because you got a coach that knows how to put the structure in place, and and I know for a fact that locker room loved Jim Montgomery.
So that's the thing for me, is whenever you're making a coaching hire, one of the biggest things that you don't know the answer to is, how are they going to mesh with our team?
Yeah.
You don't have that question with Monty for a good number of the core pieces that are already existing within this roster. And that's a big thing, man. That is not an insignificant piece to this puzzle. So if that ends up being a real option for the Blues, it's no wonder why they would explore it. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, questions and answers coming up next. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. Let's get to some of these from the text line. Guys, let's start with this. How fast did Nolan Gorman go last night from being ecstatic to borderline depressed after Jim Hayes' post-game interview?
Jim asked him some negative questions.
Nolan Gorman is a very subdued individual. He is not somebody that's going to show you a lot of emotion, and it's why I enjoyed the hell out of the bat flip, or the bat throw, I guess would be the better way to describe it.
He used it as a samurai sword.
Essentially. That's who he is, man. Anytime you talk to anytime you see Nolan Gorman, whether it's on or off camera, he's just a quiet dude, man. He's just all about ball.
He's learning
all
from
about
Big
baseball.
Fundy.
Somebody should have asked him. Did Jim ask him about cutting back the popcorn? And that was where the power came from?
I don't think so. Maybe he should start eating popcorn again.
Yeah, I would. Look, man.
I know the back's feeling better.
10 pounds
got to
be better.
On, man. We need the power.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
Hey, man.
Come on, man.
As the old, I think it was an old Bud Light commercial would say about superstitions, it's only weird if it doesn't work.
All right, this one comes from the 314. Looking back a couple of years ago when the Cardinals were at least reportedly in the mix for Juan Soto, would it have been a good trade for the Cardinals now that we have the benefit of hindsight? So the guys that we were talking about at the time were Walker, Wynn, Gorman, I think was involved.
Probably.
I think Carlson was one of the guys that we talked about.
He's definitely involved.
And then I think there was a pitching prospect in it. Was
Probably
it Hintz?
like Hintz.
So looking back on that, would you have traded those guys for Juan Soto? And it would have been, at that point, 2.5 years of Juan Soto. I mean, last year there would have been no reason to have Juan Soto on the team.
I mean, they probably would have traded Juan Soto last year. So I guess my answer to that would be probably no. Not because of what Juan Soto is. He's an awesome baseball player.
He is a perfect fit on the Yankees, too, by the way. He can't leave.
No, they should sign him to whatever he wants.
Good news is they got the money for it.
Yeah. But I think in hindsight, still, I'd say no. And I kind of pushed back on it at the time, I think, if I remember correctly, because I just didn't want to give up on Walker. And look, I've raised that I'm starting to become skeptical of Walker, but I still wouldn't move on from him. Mason Wynn, Nolan Gorman, those three are basically a Juan Soto probably in WAR would be my guess when you look at them in an individual season. So I would say no. And just the fact that they would have traded Juan Soto last year. If they were as bad as they were last year with Juan Soto on the roster, it would have been just abysmal baseball sense for them to hang on to Juan Soto. They would have had to move him.
Would have got a nice pitcher for him, though.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Probably could have. Yeah, I wouldn't have done it. I'll take my chances in bulk with all of those guys over one guy that, I know he's a sure thing, but if I get two of those guys that are sure things for me out of the entire crop of players you just mentioned, I'll take those chances.
So let me go through this real quick. Carlson is a nothing for you right now.
Yeah, I would do that in a heartbeat.
Basically been a zero for you over the last couple of seasons. Your direct replacement for Jordan Walker in the outfield would have been Juan Soto, and I'm better there with Juan Soto. You also have the power that you're lacking from Gorman being gone with Juan Soto now in your lineup.
But you're taking two powers out. Donovan would be your replacement for Gorman, but you're taking two powers out of the lineup in Walker and Gorman.
But I'm getting Juan Soto in my lineup. And then I've got a DH spot available where I can use Contreras/Burleson/Herrera.
I think the hard part for me would be the shortstop and the pitcher. And I know Tinkens isn't supposed to be.
Aside, that's not hard for me. Like if they wanted to trade Tinkens right now for like a proven major league starter, I would do that. The hard part for me is Mason Wynn. That's the one that I keep coming back to where I'm like, if you don't have Wynn, I don't know what you do at that position long term. And you're probably just looking at like having some stopgap, like Nick Ahmed would be your starting shortstop this year. So are you better with Nick Ahmed at shortstop, Donovan at second, Newt and Soto in the outfields, or what you currently have? And I think for where this team is at in its life cycle, their answer would probably be what we currently have. Yeah. But I think it's a fair question. Like, I don't think it's 100% in favor of either direction. I am always the new shiny objects guy. Like, that's just how I operate, it would be terrible as a general manager. I said at the time I probably would have done it. I probably would have still done it. Juan Soto's just that kind of a rare player, but I also know they wouldn't have re-signed him, and T-Bone's right. They might have traded him last year at the deadline.
And where people would say, well, they didn't trade Goldschmidt, because I'm sure that is some pushback, or at least being thought of, if not texted in. It's different because Soto's in his prime.
I was going to say.
Goldie still had a really good season last year, Goldschmidt was a lot older of a player.
Soto's going to be talking $300+ million.
Yeah, and if you're the Cardinals,
$600 million.
Yeah, you probably know you're not re-signing him, and B, you can just get a much better haul for Soto than you could for Paul Goldschmidt. So he probably would have been traded. The other thing to the stopgap shortstop, I don't know how it would have worked financially. They probably pick up the option on Paul DeJong. They probably never trade Paul DeJong, and they hold on to that option.
That's probably the case. All right, final thing here. Guys, how amazing were both the Knicks-Sixers games and the Lakers-Nuggets games last night? I don't know if you guys watched any of these.
I was glued to hockey.
Oh, my God.
It's glued to baseball.
The Lakers game broke my heart. Absolutely crushed me.
Did LeBron tear an ACL? Did you get a cramp?
They were up by like 20 points midway through the third quarter. And they lost, dude. They lost.
I saw they cried about the refs.
Yeah, that was dumb. Like, whatever. They had every opportunity to be able to come back. LeBron just missed a three. Like, he had the shot that would have won them the game. He missed it. It was an open look. Sucks. And then just an all-time great shot by Jamal Murray to finish that thing out. And Michael Porter Jr., the shot that will be forgotten, the three that gave them the opportunity to be right back in it right after LeBron had an unbelievable play on the other end. It was one of the best playoff games that I've seen in recent memory. It won't be remembered that way because it's the first round instead of the NBA Finals, but it was a genuinely fantastic basketball game.
I missed it because I was watching Mark Stone, rise from the dead and go out there and perform that nobody saw coming.
The Phoenix from the ashes. We'll get into that coming up in about 30 minutes or so. Coming up next, Foul Territory had an interesting question about the Cardinals yesterday. Do you find the Cardinals to be boring? We'll talk about it here on 101 ESPN. Hey, it's BK with my friend Alex Ferrario, and our friends Green Envy are going to be there to take care of your lawn. It looks like it's going to rain later on today, and Alex, nowadays, I look forward to that because when I get home, I know my grass is going to be in great shape. The only thing I got to do now, I got to water my lawn, and I don't have to do that whenever it rains outside, and I have to mow it because Green Envy takes care of the rest for me. They can do the same for you. All you got to do is give them a call, 636-757-1600. They come out every couple of weeks, Alex, put down the fertilizer I need. At the end of the year, they put down the seed. They can do the same for you.
They leave notes on my door, BK, telling me like, hey, we laid down the fertilizer. We laid down some weed killer. You should be good. We'll see you in a month. But then also on the note, it says, if you want to maintain this lawn, cut it at this measurement. Make sure you're watering it around this time every day. They give me directions on how to keep it green. And look, from the moment the spring weather starts until the winter time, it is green. And I am the envy of my neighborhood. No problems with crabgrass. No problems with weeds and all of the rain. That's what Green Envy does. So make sure you give them a call today. Tell them BK and Ferrario sent you. They're open 12 hours a day, Monday through Friday, and then 9 to 1 on Saturday. 636-757-1600. Again, 636-757-1600.
All right, so Foul Territory had Derek Gould on yesterday of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch and did a full Cardinals 20-minute segment. Alex, this was a good time. It's worth your time, in my opinion. You can check it out over on YouTube. But they did ask a question of Derek, and I thought it was worthy of us exploring a bit. Here's what they asked Derek Gould.
Last year, I felt like power rankings, number one most boring team was the Giants. You would hear it from other fans, too, and their fans were certainly complaining about it. And some of that had to do with the way that they were operating. They switched their processes with a different manager. Do you feel like the Cardinals are up there right now? Just not a lot of flash in any spots, a lot of kind of safe players, or is that unfair for fans to say?
So that was the question for Derek Gould. I want to explore this with the two of you and with the text line. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Do you find this Cardinals team to be boring? Because I think that was a fair criticism of Cardinals teams in recent years. I think they have lacked at times personality. I think they have lacked at times a playing style that captures the imagination of Cardinals fans. I think they've gotten by with the fact that they had Yadier Molina, and they had Adam Wainwright, who at one point, Albert Pujols came back. And so, like, those are things that do capture the attention of Cardinals fans. But just if you watch the baseball games, there were times where they weren't all that interesting, frankly. I don't feel that way about this team. Now, when they don't hit, they are remarkably boring, unbelievably boring. And so far this year, I do think it's fair to say, like, watching them play baseball this year has felt uninspired. It has felt like you're watching paint dry at times, because you're just watching pitchers go out there and, like, throw strikes, and you're watching a team that doesn't hit on the other side. So, yes, that part of it, absolutely boring. But, Alex, I actually find this team to be a lot more interesting, in my opinion. They're going about it in a different way, which to me at least is interesting, with the veteran pitchers. Even if I disagree with it, I find it interesting in the way that they're going about it. I think some of their young players have great personalities, way more interesting than what it's been at times in the past. I think Wilson Contreras is a super interesting guy to be able to talk to, and plays with some pizzazz on the field as well. When he tackled the pitcher, for example, the other day, that was fun. I enjoyed it personally. I don't find the team to be boring. I find their lack of hitting recently, their lack of success recently, to be boring. Where do you come out on this?
Yeah, I don't find the players to be boring because I actually think I'm glued more to the team to watch because of certain players, like with Walker, with Wynn, with Gorman, a lot of the younger guys. I'm glued to that aspect of it. And honestly, I'm still expecting that train wreck to happen with the pitching. So maybe there's a little bit of hate watching there. But like you just said, I think the team in general is very boring. And this feels a lot like what you said in the beginning of the Blue season, where it's like, man, they got exciting players, Thomas and Parayko and Binnington and Kyrou, but the results are so freaking boring right now that it's hard to watch. That's what I seemingly find right now with the Cardinals. Now, if you ask me that same question 2 months from now, and it does go to the hitting side of it, I think my tune can change, because if they start showcasing the power that we all expect them to have, if they continue to play this small ball, this whitey ball, so that we don't use advanced analytics for a lot of people, if we do that aspect of it, there's going to be a lot more people that don't feel bored watching the Cardinals. But as it stands right now, you've got tons of personality on this team, but none of it is showing because the team result is so boring.
And T-Bone, I do want to hear your thoughts on this, but I think sometimes the pushback that you get is like, yeah, guys, winning is fun, losing is boring. I don't necessarily agree. Like, go to basketball, for example. Virginia basketball is boring. I don't care how many games you win. I don't.
That's true.
Wisconsin basketball, boring. I don't care how many games you win.
Iowa
Wisconsin football, boring. Iowa football, boring. You can be super successful in playing that way.
Kansas City Royals, boring.
It's just not true. But I don't care how many games you win. That style, to me, is rather boring. I find the Cardinals as a team to be kind of compelling. I like watching Sonny Gray. I like watching Lance Lynn. Yeah. That experience is fun. Wilson Contreras, fun player. Jordan Walker, Newt, Wynn. I find them to be super fun. Now, like, Paul Goldschmidt, in my opinion, is not a particularly fun player. Excellent player. Not particularly fun a lot of the time to watch. Just fundamentally a great baseball player. Similar to watching Tim Duncan play basketball. I don't find it to be all that fun, but my God, is he excellent at his craft.
It's funny because everybody on this roster is exciting except the two guys that are the faces of the franchise.
I think Nolan Arenado's fun to watch play defense. And I think this year his defense, by the way, has been really good.
But fun to watch play defense and having a fun and entertaining personality, I think, are two different things. And Nolan Arenado has a fun and entertaining personality when they're winning. But when they're losing, man, is he boring.
And I just feel uncomfortable when he struggles, and I'm not even in the dugout.
Well, you know,
he's very intense. He runs hot.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to get thrown under the bus, too.
T-Bone, where do you come out on this?
It's funny because, like, I find the offense, even though it's not hitting right now, but I expect it to. Like, I expect kind of a Walker to get going, a Donovan. I enjoy the offense. Like, I do find the offense fun. I've been more frustrated than anything with the offense, but I do find them compelling, fun, because they can do just about anything. You got Mason Wynn that can steal bases. You've got Newpar that can get on base, but can also hit tanks. Nolan Gorman just hits tanks. I genuinely find Paul Goldschmidt fun when he is going. Like, I enjoyed the hell out of his 2022 season. I actually find the pitching staff to be the most boring, and that's the rotation. Like, outside of Sonny Gray, I love watching Sonny Gray. I kind of like watching Steven Matz when he's on because he's got some swing and miss.
It's fun to watch, man.
I just cannot get in on the Lynn experience. I can't get in on the Gibson experience. I cannot get in on the Michaelis experience.
You don't like 6 home runs given up in one inning?
No, I find this rotation just be like, blah, boring. It's just not there for me. I love Sonny Gray. The rest of this rotation, though, I could care less about. I enjoy the bullpen. I enjoy the offense. So I would come out and say, like, right now, I think they're a boring team just because of the results. It's not because of the personalities. I mean, you looked at them last night, like you got Wynn stealing the base, doing the skiing down there. You've got them kind of making fun of Grandpa Goldie for trying to run out a single on the infield. Like, that stuff's fun. And you're right, we didn't see that a while ago. But I do find the rotation to be boring.
We got the pepper grinder. You guys didn't like the pepper grinder a couple years ago?
I liked it, but it overstayed its welcome.
Yeah, and it was like he was the only one doing it.
Here's why it feels so boring to the team, because every night I turn it on, I know kind of what the result is. It's going to be low scoring, probably no run scored until the 6th inning, and then that's when the Cardinals make their comeback.
That goes back to the results, though. Like, the results are absolutely boring right now. I'm totally in agreement with you, Alex. Like, there's no disputing that. If anybody in our audience disagrees with it, if they find this part of the game to be super entertaining as they're losing and not scoring runs, I would love to hear from you via the Rhino Shield mic drop feature right now. I don't think there's anybody that would argue that side of things. And we did get this. I'm curious your thoughts, Alex. BK, nobody really cares about personality on the Cardinals. We just care about winning percentage because the winning is fun. I disagree. And the reason why is because as the Cardinals were doing a decent amount of winning, go back to 2019, for example, people found them to be boring. So, like, I do think personality matters in sports, man. Your connection to your favorite team matters. For me, just as an example, like this Missouri football team, I adored them, dude. Yes, winning was absolutely a part of it. But also, like, they did, like, the anti-college football thing where we got to see them grow as a team together. Like Darius Robinson, I remember when he came on as a freshman. I remember the Ennis Rakestraw video of Eli Drinkwitz getting super excited when he committed to Mizzou. And then I got to see him be a star on the best Missouri football team in the last decade. We got to see Brady Cook go from the guy that started as a freshman briefly as Connor Bazelak got hurt and was like basically booed out of town earlier this season to being the star quarterback, the Luther Burden story. Like, that makes you have an emotional connection that is different with the team. And college football is different than baseball, and I get that. But think about the Memphis Mafia and how they were able to capture the hearts of this city. Like, that personal connection to teams, the belief and understanding of who they are as people off of the field as much as it is who they are on the field, I do think that stuff matters, and I think we undersell how much that matters sometimes. And I think there is some of that is at least in there for this team. They just got to win to be able to get it out of them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree, like, on the sense, like, yeah, winning is a lot more exciting, but you can be an exciting team and not win.
See, that's where I disagree. I don't think you can be. We talk about Newpar. We talk about wins personality. If this team was last year's team, guys, that is annoying. That's what that is. Like, if Newpar's out there grinding the pepper while you're 20 games below 500.
I do agree with you there.
That's where, like, I find this to be a interesting, like, balance, because I think winning plays into making a team fun? Absolutely. I do think the personalities tie into that, but I also totally understand the other side of it. Like, hey, the personalities aren't coming out if you're not winning. Like Newmar's not out there grinding the pepper.
So
Gorman's not
that's
spiking the bat.
But I think the
500.
excitement comes from knowing what you have, at least as a fan. Like knowing that like you've got pieces that are starting to go somewhere, and even if you're not winning, it's like, okay, but I can see how this is going to get there.
So I don't think you can have fun while losing. I don't think a baseball team can be, because it's every day. I think when you're watching a football team, like the first 8 weeks of the season or so, you can find that team to be pretty entertaining. And then like the last 4 weeks, the Chicago Bears, for example, last 4 weeks of the season last year, fun team to watch. I think people really liked that Chicago Bears team at the end of the year. And it's why there was even a conversation about Justin Fields potentially coming back, because people really liked him. They find him to be a charismatic guy, and his style of play is super entertaining to watch on the field. It's just maddening because it doesn't result in a whole lot of winning. So I would say like winning is a prerequisite to being fun, but not all teams that win are fun. Does that make sense? It's like if you're losing, you can't be a fun baseball team because it's just the monotony of bad baseball every single day. But there are teams that win, maybe not 110 games. Those are probably pretty fun no matter what. But there are teams that win 90, 95 games that aren't all that interesting.
Oh, yeah.
And aren't all that fun to watch. And so, like, what I'm saying is, if I tell you on the front end, the Cardinals win this year, they get to 90 to 95 wins, I think this is a pretty fun group, really, if they get there. But it requires them to get there. Whereas, like, I don't know that last year's group had that in them. No. I don't know that last year's group was fun, no matter how many games they won last season. So that's the way that I would frame it personally. Does that make sense, Alex?
No, it makes sense. I don't even know if they would be, like, it would be exciting if they look like a team that could win, but I'm also looking at it, I don't know, it's so hard to look at and say, like, this is exciting because you just feel like it's not sustainable.
The Cardinals?
Yeah. So, like, at the end of the season, like you just mentioned, like, let's say they get to 90 wins at the end of the season. The excitement's there because, like, oh, okay, maybe they found something, but I don't know if it...
I think if you feel good about your
team
team
like, figure out the way to
going
frame
into
this.
the playoffs, you probably had fun with that team. Like, think of the Brewers of last year. Like, they were a 90-win team. They were not fun, man. They were the classic boring style of baseball where our offense sucks and we hope to win every game like 1-0.
And they also knew it was the end of the road with their pitching staff. Like they knew that was it.
And like I'm sure Milwaukee fans rooted for that team. There's no way in hell the Milwaukee fans believed in that team. You know, to your point of that 2019 team, that team got to the playoffs. Nobody believed in that 2019 Cardinals team. You think back at the 2022 Cardinals, you thought that if they beat the Phillies, they could go on a run. They had Albert as this 40-year-old who found the fountain of youth and is the best player in baseball. Hell, think of that 2021
team. That team was fun.
Which one?
Both of those. I thought 2022 but especially 21. 21 was a really fun team.
21 was the classic, like, man, you really didn't like them. They weren't having a lot of fun, but they weren't playing good baseball. They had some of those personalities there. They take off. They win 22 games in a whatever it was, 21 games, 17 games in a row, whatever
17.
it was. And they make the playoffs. And you believed, hey, this team, if they can just beat the Dodgers, they can beat the almighty Dodgers in a winner-take-all one-game wild card series, they can go on a run. To me, if you go into the playoffs in any sport, and you say, I think our team's got a shot, and you truly believe it, it's probably because you're buying into something that was fun from the season prior. If you're looking at a team like the Blues, for example, this past year, if the Blues made the playoffs this year, guys, I would have been on these airwaves going, this team is getting swept by whoever they're playing. Because they weren't fun. They were boring. Like, maybe Bennington could carry them, but I didn't believe in that model to go anywhere very far. So that's how I would kind of say it, as to your point of what is how are we trying to define fun for the end of the season? I think this team makes the playoffs. It's A, they're going to be fun, and B, I'm probably going to believe in something that they're doing.
Yeah, that's where I fall on this as well. Somebody on the text line said, you guys would have hated low-scoring games in the 80s. That's not what I'm saying, though. Like, it's not about... The teams in the 80s were fun for different reasons. And I think a lot of that, honestly, this goes back to my point on the personalities matter, like getting to know the guys really matter. Think about the names and the personalities and the figureheads of those teams in the 80s. Whitey being chief among them. Like, you cared about him, not just on the baseball field. You cared about Whitey Herzog off of it. He was one of you. I think this goes back to the Craig Berube thing, Alex, with the Blues. People loved Craig Berube because they thought he was a really good coach, of course. But also, it felt like he's one of you. It felt like you could go have a beer with him at the local watering hole that you go to, and you'd sit down, chop it up, and have a few stories that he tells you about the Blues.
Yeah, that's the personality side of it.
And I think that stuff does matter. Now, it doesn't matter if you don't win. But if you get to the winning part of things, that's when that stuff becomes like, okay, the winning was really fun. This is what sets us over the top. Yeah. This is what makes this a more memorable team than maybe one of the others. So, and then it's the moments. The moments become part of the story as well. So it's layering all of these different things, and that's why we love sports. Like, that's what makes all of this worthwhile.
I think you have to have
the emotional attachment.
I think you have to have likability personalities too, which I do feel like the Cardinals have, but you have to have guys that you can gravitate towards that are likable and have those personalities, because that's how you build those attachments.
Moral of the story, I think this team's fun, but I understand if you don't. Coming up next, NFL Quick Hitters here at BK and Ferrario. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. I did want to get to one other thing from our last segment before we get to some NFL quick hitters, because Alex made a really good point during the break, and I wanted to bring this to air. Alex, you mentioned how one of the things that teams have that are likable is the people that you see that are the forward-facing individuals, right? Coaches, executives, etc. Most of the time, they're pretty likable.
Yeah.
Like Andy Reid with the Chiefs. If you like the Chiefs, Andy Reid's a super easy guy to root for. Like unbelievably kind, fun. He's got a lot of things that are easy to root for.
On the hockey side, Dallas Stars GM Jim Nill, super likable dude. Everyone in the NHL always talks about him.
There you go. If you don't like the Cardinals or you don't find them to be likable or fun or interesting, I think part of that might be your opinion on Ollie Marmol and John Mozeliak.
Agreed.
I'm not telling you that you should or should not feel that way. That's your own opinion. That you can determine that for yourself. But I do think that probably plays a decent amount of a role here in the background.
Yeah, I mean, I think likability on that side is so important, especially like when you look at how it went down with Berube, we felt like he was kind of on the outside. He's going to get pushed out sooner or later. People freaking still loved Craig Berube because of the personality. I think the personality lately of John Mozeliak and Ollie Marmol has been a lot more talk down to than talk to. And I think that's what really takes away. Like, if we all love Michael Gersh for the times he's come on with us, I think that's the personality that you're expressing, people are more likely to like your team when you're the ones that are running it.
All right, let's get into some NFL quick hitters. We'll do this quickly here on BK and Ferrario. Alex, I was listening to a podcast with your girl, Diana Rossini, earlier today. She was on the Athletics NFL show. She was going through, basically the title of the podcast was, What Does Diana Know? We are 3 days away from the NFL draft. Really, it's 60 hours away-ish right now from the NFL draft. T-Bone's Rams will make their first-round selection.
Step on up.
25 years. It's an estimation. Not exactly correct. Don't check my math on that. Alex, what Diana had to say in that podcast is that her current opinion is that Washington will select a quarterback at number 2 overall, and she believes that that quarterback will be Jaden Daniels. Now, did you guys hear about the visit that took place with Washington? You guys heard about this story?
Mm-mm.
So Washington had a bunch of different players. They have these top 30 visits, right? Every team does them. You get 30 visits with players. You can do them with medicals. Like sometimes it's background checks to make sure, like, hey, do we clash with this guy's personality? Those kinds of things. So you have these guys in. Typically it's one at a time. Maybe you get a couple in. Washington decided to have like 20 guys in at once. What do? They go to Topgolf.
Nice.
And so apparently Jaden Daniels did not like this visit. And this is part of what's come out lately.
Not a golfer?
I don't know, but he didn't feel like he was given one-on-one opportunities to really like meet with the team. If I'm going to be your pick at number 2 overall, I would like to get to know the coach a little bit.
So he wanted to be wined and dined a little bit.
Correct. Most of the time they're going to like some of the greatest steakhouses in the city, etc. Well, like Drake May and JJ McCarthy were on the visit with him.
Oh, that's awkward.
It's weird, right? It's kind of weird.
JJ, what are you doing here, man?
So that's where some of this has come from. The agent didn't love it either. So then he goes on a visit to Minnesota. You don't do that typically if you're a guy that is expected to go in the top 2. Well, Diana Rossini said her belief is that Washington still loves Jaden Daniels. She said that a lot of teams, the coaches around the league, view Jaden Daniels as easily the second best quarterback in this draft, and some have him above Caleb Williams in this year's draft. What do you guys make of this, that Washington is almost certainly going to select Jaden Daniels, the quarterback out of LSU, and that a lot of teams around the league have him as the clear-cut number 2 quarterback over Drake May?
I mean, I get the clear-cut number 2. I believe that. I think Jaden Daniels is going to be much better than what Drake May or McCarthy or any of these guys are going to be. I don't know if I'm down the better than Caleb Williams route, but I think he's going to be a really good quarterback. It is just wild to me if you got a guy that doesn't like you, that you're going to make him your star, especially now. I didn't know that story, that you're bringing in all of these guys when you'd think for something that illustrious that you'd want to make that more of like a priority of like, you are our dude and we want to make sure that you and I are on the same pace, because like it or not, you do have to be in the same wavelength as the guy that you're going to draft as your franchise quarterback. If you're not, how are you going to build this franchise up if the dude that's supposed to be leading you to success isn't on the same page as you? So it is a bold strategy, but I mean, if you're Washington, you got to take the best player available to you.
Yeah, I agree with, he's probably the second best quarterback in this draft, at least in terms of when you think about the ceiling for the quarterback, you know? Like, we've talked about it. His ceiling is probably Lamar Jackson 2.0. I don't see that kind of ceiling for like a Drake May. The way they've handled this is terrible.
Yeah.
The fact that you're going to go with the idea of let's just have everybody go on this Topgolf thing, That is such poor mismanagement.
Well,
and what a terrible way to start with to your point, the franchise quarterback.
The NFL,
if this is a running back, sure, what the hell? Who cares?
NFL is so like, oh, we're going to test this guy to see how he handles this. This feels like such a, well, let's see how you handle being in a group with everybody.
That is exactly what it is.
And I hate that.
Apple does this. Like some big corporations across the country will put you into a group setting to find out how you react to interacting with others, and that's part of their interview. And I think that's what's happening here with Washington is they wanted to see how the quarterbacks would interact with everybody else. I do think there's some value in that,
yeah, but
honestly.
Not with the other quarterbacks. Like if it was him and a ton of other offensive weapons, fine.
I don't know that this was the right way of going about it. I think that right idea, bad execution.
You don't show up and Drake May is there with
you. If you're
you.
picking like 15th and you're not taking a franchise quarterback, sure. Guys, you have the second pick. Everybody agrees, apparently, based on what Diana Ricci said, that this is the second best quarterback, if not better than Caleb Williams. So you might even be getting the best quarterback. And your whole thought process was, could we piss him off? No, maybe. Let's just go with the whole group setting idea.
This just feels like Washington doesn't want to spend money. And they're like, well, rather than take 30 guys out, let's just take all 30 guys out for one trip.
Now, how do you think they're all sitting in that office going, man, our experiment kind of back. I don't really want to be here. This
wasn't good.
It's awkward.
All right, continuing along
Nix
here. She also had some information on number 3 with the New England Patriots. She said that ownership has gotten involved here, and her expectation is that the New England Patriots will be selecting a quarterback at number 3 overall. And the belief appears to be that it's going to be Drake May. How do you guys think that fit will go for Drake May year 1 with the New England Patriots?
I'm
really worried about it.
A lot like Mac Jones. Yeah. I think you're putting a quarterback into a situation that the team's not ready to have their quarterback. I think you got to fix so many other things. And frankly, for them, now that you're moving out of the Bill Belichick era, I think you need to focus on fixing your team before you bring in a guy that's supposed to fix him with your team.
Can I read you their receivers? KJ Osborne, Kendrick Bourne, Demario Douglas, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Tyquan Thornton. It's just a really bad situation. I hope they do not play him this year.
3 of those guys I'm not even sure are real players.
It's basically, hey, I have a bunch of receivers that are on a bye week this week for me in fantasy football. Maybe one of these guys can get me 6 catches for 60 yards and a touchdown.
Why not?
That's what their entire receiving room is made of.
Why not trade down? Why not trade down and build more assets up? You know you're going to be bad for a while.
This is why. If I'm trying to take their side of things. Drake May's probably the number 1 pick next year. This quarterback in next year's class probably goes number 1 overall. Let's get him on our roster because the quarterback is the most important thing. Now, it's kind of like the Washington thing, right? Good idea, bad execution.
But aren't you burning all of the cheap years because your team is so bad so that when you're ready to compete?
We've seen how quick you can turn it around.
Yeah, you could turn it around next year. And if they've got the right coach, I don't know, maybe Gerard Mayo's a really good coach. You could see this next year, maybe it's a little better of a situation. Get a couple of receivers from this year's class, number 34 overall pick. Maybe they go get somebody that's really good right away. Where I would diverge from their plan, they have Jacoby Brissett on the roster. I would just start him this year. And allow Drake May to get into the room, sit for a year, and next year you're our guy. We've got you here. We're going to burn this 3rd overall pick on you, but we don't think this is a good situation for a rookie. Let's go ahead and give you some time to be able to just get...
Send him to the AHL for a year.
There you go. Basically the same thing.
If we could.
All right, next thing that I wanted to get
UFL.
to. Speaking of the quarterbacks, one of the biggest storylines on draft night, because 1, 2, 3, it seems like everybody agrees. Those are the 3 top quarterbacks. They'll go off the board. They'll fly off the board. One of the other quarterbacks appears to be Michael Penix Jr. Her belief is that he's going 1st round, and her belief is that Las Vegas is the most likely landing spot at number 13 overall. J.J. McCarthy will go at some point between the top 3 and Michael Penix Jr. And the 2 teams that are most likely to select him appear to be Minnesota and Denver. They select 11th and 12th overall in this year's class.
Welcome to Denver, Zach Wilson. Go back to the bench.
Alex, she said she thinks that Denver might have more to offer than Minnesota, despite Minnesota having 2 first-round picks in this year's draft. Because she believes, Diana Rossini of The Athletic, Denver's willing to offer anything. They are desperate, dude. They will give you the 1st-round pick that they have this year. They will give you their 2nd-round pick this year. They will give you future assets. They will give you, if you want to take Surtain, go ahead. We need J.J. McCarthy. If you're Minnesota and Denver ends up beating your offer to get to number 4 for J.J. McCarthy, what in God's name do you do? Because now you have no other alternatives. You went all in on getting this rookie quarterback. What do you do if you're the Minnesota Vikings?
Draft Bo Nix, but you draft him in the second round. You draft. You use that first round pick to either get better elsewhere or trade back and garner more picks. You take Bo Nix and you take him in the second round. That's your only option. There's nothing out there for you anymore. Your team is not good with what options you have right now, and I don't know if I would trade up for McCarthy if I'm Minnesota. And I know you're like in desperation mode. I'm just not sold on J.J. McCarthy. I don't think he's going to be that good, and I don't know if I'd want to risk the future of this team by going after that to where maybe I could get Bo Nix on a lower risk and maybe find a diamond in the rough here. If Denver wants to throw all of their assets at a guy that I don't think is going to be very good, by all means, because Minnesota's got other things to worry about, like keeping Justin Jefferson happy. If I'm them, that's the first thing I do. Hey, Justin, who do you want us to draft?
Yeah,
because we want to keep you here.
He's kind of the direction I was going to go is, if you don't think Bo Nix is a starting NFL caliber quarterback, you do not take Bo Nix. You cannot just take a quarterback in the second round and go, oh crap, we got Sam Darnold. You have to take the painful year. Like, you have to just basically say, all right, we're playing for the first overall pick in next year's draft, and I don't even know what that quarterback class looks like. I don't think it's a very good quarterback class. So it could be a 2 to 3 year kind of, we've got to take our medicine because we decided to move on from Kirk Cousins. And if that's the case, if you don't get your quarterback, you look at next year's draft, which some of these teams are already doing, and you're going, there's not a guy here. You need to trade Justin Jefferson. You have to get something for Justin Jefferson and not sign him to that contract, because you can get a haul for Justin Jefferson. So I think if they don't get the guy that they're looking for in this year's draft, the domino has started to fall toward where they are going to be tearing this thing apart.
Man, it's not a good situation if they're not able to move up. They've got to find a way to make it happen. All right, coming up at 15 minutes, we'll get into the junk drawer. But coming up next, Alex was furious last night. Had to rage quit on the game. Couldn't even watch as Vegas gets their first goal of the postseason. And it is, of course, the one, the only, the Phoenix that rose from the ashes, Mark Stone. We'll talk about the NHL's playoff cap problem next year on 101 ESPN. Hey, it's BK. When you woke up this morning, did you feel as well as you did 5, 10, 15 years ago? Did you feel like, I just don't have the same energy. I'm a little bit more moody. I snapped at my kid the other day, and it wasn't their fault at all. It was me. It wasn't them. Maybe you should go to Victory Men's Health. VictoryMen'sHealth.com is the place where you can find all of their information. When you go there, they will take a micronutrient lab draw test, and what that's going to allow them to do, it's going to find some of those markers to see, okay, are you low on testosterone? Is there something else with your micronutrients that we can help here? And if there is, they're going to get you taken care of. They've got that initial visit taken care of for you. You'll get the comprehensive lab work, and when you're done there, you'll go home feeling like you unlocked your inner champion. Victory Men's Health has 4 great locations across the St. Louis area: O'Fallon, Illinois, O'Fallon, Missouri, Town and Country, and the newest location is in Sunset Hills, Missouri. You can find out all of their information as well at VictoryMen'sHealth.com.
Warmer weather is finally here, and it's time to bust out of the house and out of your routines. Get outside and try something new, like the new Bacon Cajun Ranch McCrispy. Pair it with an Oreo frappe and McDonald's world-famous fries. Say yes to spring with tender chicken covered in tangy Cajun ranch sauce. You can even get 25% off any order of $5 or more when you use mobile order and pay in the app. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. Offer valid through May 19th, 2024. Participating McDonald's. Valid once a day. Excludes tax. Must opt into rewards. Oreo is a trademark of Mondelez International Group, used under license.
Do you have multiple years of unfled taxes or owe more than $8,000? The tax attorneys at Allies Tax Relief are your ally and will stop the IRS from garnishing your wages or them levying your bank account. Call 800-230-5174.
The Cardinals host the White Sox May 3rd through 5th, and there are great giveaways all weekend, like Cardinals soccer jersey, purse, and more. For full details, visit cardinals.com/promotions.
Terry Herders here with a Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. The Cardinals will be back in action today after they beat the Arizona Diamondbacks last night with a walk-off two-run homer by Nolan Gorman, 5-3. Game 2 of the series, 6:45 first pitch tonight. Tommy Henry gets to start for Arizona. Steven Matz will be on the mound for St. Louis. The Sports Update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario, live from the Car Shield studio on 101 ESPN.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. You got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Should we play the game?
No, I don't want to play the game. Play the stupid game in the commercial break.
BK does. T-Bone does not like guessing games.
He gets really mad.
No.
So,
how do you like trivia, man? You like trivia?
I do, but it wasn't this.
I see you yelling at your mom and dad a lot when you're playing games.
Out. First inning runs scored so far this year. So most runs scored in the first inning this year. Arizona is at number 1, 27 so far this year in the first inning.
Hey,
Seattle,
go Cards. You kept them to 0.
Last in Major League Baseball. 5 runs scored in the first inning so far this year. The Cardinals are right near the bottom. They've scored 8 runs in the first inning so far this year. You're tied with Oakland and Minnesota, who are horrible.
We are having fun.
Good, very bad offenses. This offense is going to get it going, guys.
We are having fun. They're going to get shut out tonight.
Oh, they're not winning.
No, they're not.
I think
they're
scored
not
3 in the first inning.
They're not. No, they just scored 8 all season. They're going to score 3 tonight.
Have you seen what the opposition is throwing out there tonight?
Goldie had a good night. Ollie's
Junk lefty.
That'd be great.
Goldie had a good night. Ollie's moving him back into the 2-hole.
Against a lefty? Absolutely, you should. All right, let's get into the conversation at hand. Alex was very mad last night. He rage quit. He turned off and then threw his remote at the screen.
That's broken.
As he was watching the Vegas Golden Knights and Mark Stone, their best player, return like the phoenix from the ashes after having a spleen issue that caused him to miss the vast majority of the season. Alex, this has become a conversation over the last couple of seasons. It's back in the conversation right now.
Emphasis on back, am I right? That's typically what his injuries have been the last 2 years. It's
spleen issue this year once again.
Oh, we had to switch it up. This is like when you tell your old work, like, hey, I can't come in because my grandma died. Oh, wait, your grandma died last month. Oh, and your grandpa died too. Everybody starts dying because you want to take off work. That's the equivalent of what Vegas has done.
I could localize that to something here, but I'm not going to do that. All right, so Alex, I do want to ask you about the cap circumvention that we're seeing from the Vegas Golden Knights. How do you fix this? Because they're clearly taking advantage of the rules. There's a loophole in the rules where there's an LTIR situation. Hey, $10 million. We're just going to get an extra $10 million against the cap by putting this guy on LTIR. Now, it's really risky. They nearly missed the playoffs because of this. But it's worked for their team building exercises.
Real quick, did you see the cap-friendly picture that they put out yesterday? They put out the cap-friendly transaction of Mark Stone. The last 3 years, he gets placed on injured reserve in February. March, he hits LTIR, and then the day before the playoffs, he's activated from LTIR.
I mean, it's really
every single season last year, he was on it, and then April 18th, the day of the first round of the playoffs, Mark Stone was magically healed and enters the game.
Well, he's probably at 60%, but he's good enough to be able to play.
The dude's probably practicing underneath the building and being like, no, he's hurt. Guys, Kelly McCrimmon, guys, it is terrible that all of you are assuming that this is not a serious injury. This is a serious injury.
I mean, it clearly was. He missed the rest of the regular season.
Son of
a... in all seriousness.
Yeah.
Okay. You're mad about this. I would imagine there are owners across the NHL that are upset about this. They don't love it. I personally love it. I'll get to that here in a minute. But what do you do? Cool, we're angry, we're upset. Now what? How do you fix this? How do you prevent teams from doing this in the future in a way that teams will actually agree to, because they would have to go in and change the rules.
Yeah.
Everybody would have to agree to that. So how do you do it?
Well, and the key phrase you said there is to get everybody on board with it, because the extreme that I see a lot of people, and look, I'm one of them, is, well, he's ineligible to play for the first round of the playoffs. Teams will not agree to that, specifically owners, so that's not going to get approved in the CBA. The two areas, and one I saw Curbs tweet out yesterday, and the other I heard on a podcast. Curbs tweeted out that the playoff lineup regular season, so the lineup you start in the playoffs should be cap compliant once you start that first round of the playoffs. Just like in the NHL, your roster is cap compliant. Your 23-man NHL roster should be cap compliant to start the playoffs. Just like in baseball, when you have to submit your DS, your CS roster, I think NHL teams should have to submit their roster, and it has to be cap compliant.
I mean, to be fair, though, Vegas's would be very close to being cap compliant.
But they wouldn't be able to carry they couldn't carry Aiden Hill in the first round of the playoffs.
Sure.
You would have to ride the Logan Thompson train because of the Tomas Hertl if you activate Mark Stone. So there's some ability to adjust, and the trade deadline is not what it has been for Vegas over these past couple of years. This is the part that I heard on a podcast, and I got to go back and figure out which one it was on, Sportsnet podcast. But they said you get half a player's salary in LTIR relief if they aren't ruled out for the entire regular season or playoffs. But if they are ruled out, so take Gabriel Landeskog, for example, he was ruled out at the beginning of the season, and they knew he wasn't coming back this year, then that team has full access to their LTIR relief money. So Vegas, who lost Mark Stone, miraculously he heals in 2 months, but because they had him up until February and they thought that he was going to come back, you only get half of that LTIR. So you only have $3-point-something million to work with Mark Stone's money.
I think that's probably the best way that I've heard this framed. Can I give my perspective real quick?
No,
I don't think this is a problem.
T-Bone, we have to hit a break, right?
I mean, we do, yes, but
I hate both of you.
I don't think this is an issue. If your team is unwilling to do what Vegas is doing right now in order to maximize your winning window, that is a problem for your owner that he should have to answer for, not a problem that Vegas should have to answer for. And frankly, if Vegas's team is so good, so overwhelmingly great, that they can go the final, 3 months of the regular season without their best player and their captain playing a single game in that 3-month stretch, and one of the guys that they added to the roster for the playoffs, and Hertl, for him to barely play down the stretch as well, and for them to still be able to make the playoffs, dude, that's a hell of a hockey team that they've been able to assemble. And that's without getting into any of the money concerns that we're talking about here. That is with them having basically $17 million just sitting into the press box. And oh, by the way, I didn't mention Petro, who missed a good portion of the final month or so of the season as well. It's another $9 million. It's like $25 million that's just sitting up in the press box, and they're still finding a way to be better than 2/3 of the Western Conference. So I don't have an issue with this. In fact, I hope every team that is in their winning window operates this way. I think it's better for the league to continue to throw assets at, I want to maximize our ability to win at the highest level possible right now. It's something I've been critical about the Cardinals about, where it's like, okay, cool, you guys are trying to win, but when you get to the deadline, you add spare parts. Go add real tangible stuff that helps you win a World Series. That's what the Astros do. That's what the Rangers do. That's what teams that go out and win it all decide to do at the deadline. So I'm not trying to get up on a soapbox, but I actually respect, appreciate, and say that other teams should try to emulate what the Vegas Golden Knights are doing, as opposed to saying that they should be like disciplined and like whacked on the hand because of this.
I think the biggest issue with this, because I tend to, I see both sides of the argument. Would I mind?
And I do understand why people are frustrated.
Would I mind if they had a rule like the one that Alex brought up, or hell, they just carried over the cap? It's not like the NFL; the cap just disappears when the playoffs start. I wouldn't mind that. But to your point, the trade deadline's not as exciting this year if the Vegas Golden Knights don't have Mark Stone's money to play with, and that's all we ask, right?
Also, the offseason isn't as exciting because now they got to figure out what to do for next year.
Like, if we do put the restraint on it, you also have to know, like, hey, the trade deadline may not be as exciting because teams that do this LTIR move that Vegas is doing, all of a sudden you're not seeing hurdle be dealt. I remember when that trade came in, it was like, hey, Vegas has something in the works. I mean, Alex looked at each other and went, what the hell could they possibly be doing? Maybe they're trading for Booch. Know but you were on the edge of your seat. Like, that's where I do think that some of this idea of, okay, well, if we get rid of this, and again, I'm okay if you do, but just know that if you do to say the cap will carry over into the playoffs, or if you only get half of that money, man, you're not going to see that kind of trade that we saw Vegas swing at this year's trade deadline.
I think the frustration for me that sets in is that it's the same player every single year.
And I get that. I think the one problem to what BK was saying where teams should utilize this, and again, I don't disagree with that.
Teams are just going to sit their best player at the end of the season.
Well, I think the problem right now is the integrity of the game is a little bit in question of how he's able to recover miraculously
three straight years.
But they also had to win. This is the part that I have a tough time with, is like, if we're saying that guy is so great that he can help them win a Stanley Cup, he puts them over the top to win a Stanley Cup. Did he not matter in the regular season to the point where they were able to get to the...
But you barely snuck in. But now, and look, that's a gamble that everybody takes.
I think that's a little... Didn't Vegas finish in the top 3 in their division last year?
Mm-hmm.
Like, there are some teams that are locks for the playoffs the moment Stone could be placed on the LTIR.
And they set their ability to be that high up for how good they were in the early portion, and they had the wiggle room where they're like, oh, cool. Well, the problem with that is, yes, you're right, BK. Like, you still have to make the playoffs. That's why I was rooting like hell that the Blues got in, so Vegas missed, and it bit them in the ass. The problem, though, is if you're them, it is an advantage that the team gets because they're like, oh, hey, well, if we get in, our best player is going to be at 100%, and nobody is at 100% in the playoffs. But our best player is at 100% for when the playoffs start.
Yeah, I know I'm on an island.
You cheat in Monopoly, don't you? You stack the cards.
I mean, tell me the rules of the game and I'll play it. And I'll try to find a way to win at the highest level possible. Like that would be my philosophy as an organization. And that's what Vegas's philosophy is, man. The NHL said, here are the rules for the expansion draft. And they said, all right, we're gonna expose any flaw that you potentially have in this system. And they did. The NHL told them, here are our LTIR rules. And they said, we are going to expose any flaw that may exist within this system.
They should just send it in at the beginning of the season. Like, hey, Mark Stone is going to be out in February. He'll be back and activated day 1 of the playoffs, and just know that this transaction's here for you.
I respect it, honestly. They're open and honest about it. It's not like they're out here like trying to... They're not out here doing what like the Patriots do, where they're deflating footballs and spying on other teams. No, they're saying, how much money do we have to play with? How can we get more of it?
But they're not even up front with it. Their owners like, shame on you thinking that this isn't a serious injury. Where I think
it probably, in all seriousness, I do believe that he had a serious injury. I absolutely believe that. And I also think they're playing the game. I think both things can be true.
Good. I hope they choke the rest of the way, which is why I had to turn it off, because when Stone, and that's going to piss me off more than anything if they win the damn cup. Somebody's texted in on our YouTube page and said, so BK wants the Cardinals to sit Sonny Gray and Lars Nootbaar from now until the playoffs.
Well, if the Cardinals were so excellent that they could find a way to get to the playoffs without those guys, and it added to their payroll ability to do so, then sure, yeah. Like, if the Cardinals could shut down, I don't know, Paul Goldschmidt in July, and it wouldn't mess with his timing. Like, this is an impossible task, but just hear me out here. The Cardinals could shut him down on July 31st, and by doing so, they get an extra $25 million that they're able to spend at the deadline this year. And they're willing to do it, by the way, which is an important factor here. And I knew that there was going to be no timing issues that took place when Goldie got back. And I knew that by doing so, they were still going to also make the playoffs. Yeah, they should absolutely do that. 100%. Yes, I would be in favor of that.
BK loves cheaters.
You were winning.
You were a big
I'm in
fan
favor of winning.
You were a big fan of the Astros when they won, weren't you?
Junk drawer is next.
April is here, and with springtime weather, it's important to have quality windows. If yours won't open to let in the fresh air, maybe they won't seal tight to keep out the pollen and bugs, or have been leaking water all winter, then it's time you talk to the experts at Window Nation. Right now, for every 2 windows you buy, you'll get 2 windows free. There's no limit to how much you could save. You could save even more with no interest or payments for 24 months. Window Nation's windows come with a lifetime warranty and can be installed in 1 day or less. With proven quality and service, when you buy from Window Nation, you can rest assured you'll be getting affordable windows that meet or beat the ones from the national brands. Don't miss out on your chance to afford quality windows with an unlimited buy 2, get 2 free, plus 0 interest for 24 months. You can't afford to wait. You can also get a house of windows. You can get a pair of St. Louis Cardinals tickets. It's easy. Just call 866-90-NATION or go online and visit them at windownation.com to schedule your free in-home estimate.
Hey, Jay Delsing here. Join me every Sunday morning from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. for Golf with Jay Delsing. Brought to you by Darty Business Solutions. It's the biggest names in golf right here on 101 ESPN.
This is wide receiver Luther Burden III. Come support NIL and get a quote from my friend James Carlton.
Thanks, Luther. That's right. For every quote you mention, Luther Burden III will make a donation to NIL on your behalf. Getting a quote is easy. Just go online at carltoninsurance.net. Call or text 314-961-4800. If you have drivers under the age of 25, if you're seeing rising rates, give us a call or text us 314-961-4800 or go online at carltoninsurance.net. Let's keep the momentum going.
Giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario, live from the Car Shield studio on 101 ESPN.
Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Boys, I got a question for you. Because yesterday, after our little guy, Luca, went to sleep, we decided to watch a TV show. And I've been having an issue lately, Alex. I think this is something that you and I might deal with.
We should probably unplug it and plug it back in, and it works.
No. I have found myself falling asleep within the first 10 minutes of a TV show or movie every time we turn something on lately. And I don't understand it.
You are preaching to the damn choir. You know what that's called? Exhaustion.
Tebow knows. I used to be the guy that would stay up till 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, wake up the next day at 7, bounce right back. I'd be good to go. I don't know what happened to me, Alex. I'm old. I'm washed. Something has changed in the last 3 months or so.
Yep.
I can't do it anymore.
Yep.
So something in me, I sit down, and I used to make fun of my mom for this. You sit down, you turn on whatever it is that you're going to watch, you're fully invested, you believe that this is going to be a great experience between you and your wife, right? We're going to watch this show together.
Ours is a competition to see who falls asleep first.
And 10 minutes in,
don't get comfortable. Yeah.
My wife will do the thing where she like waves her hand in front of my face. And if I respond and I'm like, what the hell are you doing? She knows I'm awake. And if I don't respond, she immediately knows that I'm asleep. The other day she did that and I was asleep at first. And then I must have like felt the
felt her touch your nose.
Something like that. And I was like, what are you doing? She was like, well, 10 seconds ago I started doing that. It's like, God damn.
Hey, man.
Caught.
That's called exhaustion.
Do you have that?
Yeah. I actually only make it. I think I told you guys I was watching Blacklist I think last summer. And what is that? That's like 8 seasons.
Oh, dude.
It took Katie and I about 8 months to get through it because every night would be one episode. And they're 45 minutes. And good luck getting through 45 minutes. When you and Kara decide to have baby number 2, cut that time in half because then it just gets even worse. Like right now, with a third baby coming in August, I only expect to get about 10 minutes into a show that I watch before I fall asleep.
Felt that a little bit last night, but granted, mine was at like almost 2 o'clock in the morning.
2 in the morning. Mine's at 8
when I was
p.m.
tired, I'm assuming this was like you 8, BK like 8:30. Like you're officially old.
I'm exhausted, man.
I'll get you a coffee cup that says you're old.
Do a lot of work.
Somebody said, congratulations, BK. You turned 30. Happens to the best of us.
I'm telling you, man, it is a good feeling to sit down, grab a nice blanket. What I do to try and the loopholes. You love loopholes, as we've just learned. You love to cheat. I like to give myself food while I'm watching the show, so that keeps me awake.
Somebody else said, BK, just go ahead and grab yourself a coffee around 10 o'clock. That's what T-Bone used to do for baseball.
Yeah.
We'd get to the 7th inning, T-Bone would be like, all right, we're 3 hours in. I'm pouring my 4th cup of coffee today.
Every night before the pitch clock, I would make a pot of coffee before first pitch.
Nolan Gorman would not love me because every night when I want to watch something, it's a bowl of popcorn.
You know, Rob Manfred's legacy should actually be that he saved Tanner Hendrickson's life.
No, I don't know if he saved it. He might be killing him by 40 for how much coffee this dude
I'm saying
consumes.
Now he doesn't have to do that any longer.
Yeah.
The pitch clock saved his life.
No, now he just does the pot at 12 o'clock after his nap.
Now I got time for the nap.
Helps. All right, coming up in 15 minutes.
I had those.
We'll play a game of Bet It or Forget It. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. By the way, Alex, this will hit home for you. Going from 2 kids to 3 is when it really hits for you. So have fun with that one, man. You're what, 3 months away?
Honestly, I can't get any more exhausted than what I am, so we're good to go, man.
Coming up next, do you believe that the jumping off point for the Cardinals offense took place last night? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
Kickstart your mornings with the opening drive on 101 ESPN. Get in the know first on everything St. Louis sports with Brooke Grimsley, Dan McLaughlin, and Randy Carricker. The opening drive, weekday mornings from 7 to 10 on 101 ESPN.
The opening drive is presented by Sumner One.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends at Classic Air Care. Look, last night the temperature dropped, so I turned my heat on because I got to make sure that the room stay at least somewhat warm for my girls. But the air was on yesterday, so we're going back and forth right now. Thank heavens that I have Classic Air Care. They take care of my home with our old HVAC system, 26-year-old unit. That look, every single time I turn the heat on, I'm thinking, oh boy, this might not get me through to the next season, but it does because Classic Air Care takes such good care of me, and they take care of tons of different people. They've been making people comfortable since 1926. They took care of my dad in the house that he bought like 40 years ago, took care of me and my wife in our first home, and now the house that we're in right now. So give them a call today. If you don't believe me, check out the tons of reviews that they have. A 4.8 Google review rating. This one from Jim talking about the technicians from Classic Air Care. They have the best that I've ever worked with. I won't let anyone else touch my home. They know what they're doing, completely trustworthy. Did it back in 2007 and have been using them since. Give them a call today. Check it out online. Classic Air Care and ClassicAirCare.com. Tell them Alex Ferrario sent you. Again, Classic Air Care and ClassicAirCare.com.
The only sports source in St. Louis that matters. WXOS HD1 East St. Louis, 101 ESPN.
With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Do you believe last night was the jumping off point for the offense? Alex, they only scored 5 runs. This wasn't some juggernaut offensive performance against the Arizona Diamondbacks. However, it was how it happened and who contributed that I think felt different in that one. Paul Goldschmidt with a home run. Nolan Gorman walks it off with his home run against a left-handed pitcher. That's stuff that we just haven't seen a whole lot of this year. It was Goldie's first home run since the first game of the season. So for you, are you believing? Are you buying into what we saw yesterday as a real jumping off point, or do you feel like we're going to look back on that and say, we saw 5 runs against Milwaukee, we saw 9 runs against Arizona in the first game there. That wasn't a jumping off point, and I don't think this one will be either.
Nailed it. Unfortunately, surprise, surprise, I'm not going to believe in this one. The Arizona Diamondbacks 9-run game is why I'm skeptical. Because that was the game, if I'm not mistaken, that's when Nolan Arenado hit the home run. And we were like, oh, Nolan's officially back. Now he's starting to get going.
And he was, by the way.
He absolutely was. But you scored 9 runs in that game, and then 2, then 0, then 3, then 3, then 3, then 1, then 5. Yeah. And this is what I said in the open. I'm worried about. That's your opportunity to jump, especially when you look at their schedule with the Mets coming up and the Detroit Tigers coming up and the White Sox coming up and the Mets again. That's your opportunity to pounce. But as we've seen, and I hope I'm wrong, I hope the narrative changes here, but after I saw that 9-run outing and thinking, okay, well, you just broke a string of 5 consecutive games where you scored 3 runs and that was it. You laid 2, 0, 3, 3, 3. So, no, I'm skeptical of it. I think that's going to be good for Goldie and Gorman. But I wonder if now you're going to have somebody else hit a dry spell. And it feels like a bad cycle for this team to where when something gets fixed, something else gets broken. Nothing seems to fix all at the same time.
T-Bone, I want to hear your thoughts on this. One of the reasons why I would have confidence that it can be the jumping off point is because of what you just said there, Alex, because it was Goldie and Gorman. And if you get those guys, dude, I don't know how you can have like a strong belief in this, but if you believe that was the jumping off point for those 2 players, and they are now going to be some semblance of what we expected them to be in 2024, well, then you'll have Goldie, Gorman, Arenado, Contreras, Newt, and Wynn all contributing meaningfully offensively. And if you want to throw Brendan Donovan in there, who's going through a slump with his hits, but is still getting on base at a pretty good clip, it's 7 of your 9 players in your lineup that you're feeling pretty decent about at worst right now. But it all comes back to me. Do you think that was an outlier performance from Goldie and Gorman, or is that going to be more of the norm? If it is, I think the offense is back, but that's really where the question lies.
Yeah, I'm pretty skeptical still because it's not like Goldie's second hit in that game was a missile through the left side. It went down as that in the box score, but it was really like a 30-mile-an-hour infield single. So it wasn't even really a solid hit by Paul Goldschmidt. And you only saw the one at bat from Gorman. It was a home run. So we'll see how he looks tonight. I think tonight's the telling game. And, like, I hate to put a bunch of pressure because I don't know if they can handle pressure. But, you know, if they don't hit Tommy Henry, man, that was an outlier. Tommy Henry stinks. He's left-handed junk thrower.
And it's a guy they've never seen before.
If they don't hit him tonight, it's not the bouncing off point. This should be the game where they can really build that momentum off of last night. You got the good vibes. We've been talking positive, unlike yesterday where BK wanted to be negative the whole show. And you end up scoring like 5 runs on Tommy Henry, and then I can go, okay, I can see where you start to buy into this, where you go, okay, now they finally got it clicking. You get shut out. You get 1-2 runs against some lefty that is not very good. No, it was a one-off. And again, I hate to be so negative on Paul Goldschmidt because he's honestly maybe one of my favorite baseball players coming into the season on the St. Louis Cardinals. Last night's second hit wasn't a missile. You know, like a blind squirrel finds a nut with a home run and can get a little infield single. If he can put it together and I start to see good swings tonight, then I'm going to be willing to buy in.
I think the other thing is, like, man, you got 2 lefties on the mound over the next 2 days. This one's not very good. Tomorrow's is pretty good with Jordan Montgomery. We know that. But it's 2 lefties. This lineup should crush left-handed pitching, man. Yeah. It should. And Paul Goldschmidt, for all of his struggles this year, and they have been plenty, and very, very limited sample size, he's got a 925 OPS against left-handed pitching. If it doesn't get going over the next 2 days, it's probably just not going to happen for them. It's just the honest truth of the matter. At least not early enough for it to matter in a meaningful way. Because after this, it's a whole lot of right-handed pitching that you're going to see. They're not great, but they're right-handed. And so that means the platoon advantage goes in favor of the pitcher as opposed to what you have in your lineup. So I would really like to see over the next 2 days Goldie get going. He's one that I would have circled. And then another guy that we have not brought up today because he was not in the lineup yesterday is Jordan Walker, who I can't think of anybody in your lineup that has more pressure on them over the next 2 days than Jordan Walker. He has to hit. He should be in the lineup each of the next 2 days, and he has got to hit. I thought it was really smart that they didn't have him in there yesterday against a guy that's 4-seam and slider. It's not the profile of pitcher that you want Jordan Walker seeing right now. That's where the struggles are coming. But if he can't get it going against Henry or Montgomery, I think it might be time. Might be time to send him down, and I don't take any pleasure in saying that whatsoever. But after that, you see such a stretch of right-handed pitching that I think you'll probably see them go with Donovan and Nootbaar in the outfield for the foreseeable future. He's only played in 4 of the last 8 games. It's only going to get worse from here if we don't see anything start to click for him offensively. Coming up next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Bet It or Forget It here on 101 ESPN.
We want your insight and honest opinions on the world of sports. Use the mic drop feature in the 101 ESPN app. Say it and send it to us. Now in the App Store or Google Play.
Alex Ferrario back with you to talk about Rhino Shield. When it comes to your business, it's time to take a look at it. Be honest with yourself and say it needs a new look. Whether it's for your exterior, whether it's for the roof on your business, Rhino Shield can do it all for you. Darren actually sent me pictures of their most recent job, Metal Supermarkets over in O'Fallon, Illinois. Brand new roof and walls before their ribbon cutting ceremony in May. And I see the old picture, which looks worn down, the metal siding, the roof, and then I see the new pictures. It looks like a brand new building. That's what they can do for you. Whether it's your home, whether it's your business, they do whatever types of sidings you have in concrete, whether it's wood, whether it's stucco, block, aluminum, vinyl, they can take care of all of it. They did so with my home 3 years ago, and it looks brand new. 100% waterproof, deflects 90% of the UV rays, all with the work of Rhino Shield, and it's backed by a 25-year transferable warranty. Give Darren a call today. Tell him I sent you. 877-25-RHINO, 877-25RHINO.com.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely on advertisements.
If you've been hurt on the job, you need the best Onder Law. Hurt on the job? Call Onder Law today for a free review at 314 or 618-9000000.
This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario, live from the Car Shield studio on 101 ESPN.
Ooh. Oh. What just happened?
Puberty hit real quick there.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line if you're still with us. Alex is not. Alex just died on the radio. For bet it or forget it, you give us a scenario, we will tell you if we are betting it or forgetting it here on the show. All right, guys, start with this one. Andy Reid yesterday signed a contract extension through 2029 with the Kansas City Chiefs. Alex, bet it or forget it, he will finish his career with more victories than Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick right now has 302 career wins. Andy Reid has 258. So he would need 44 more victories to overtake Bill Belichick on the all-time career wins list.
Man, you're talking about maybe 4 or 5 seasons. Yep. How old is he again?
Andy, I think he's like 64.
I'll bet this one. I think if you're him, you're chasing the Super Bowls.
66.
You're chasing. I mean, look, Pete Carroll did it till he was like 105. So correct. If he can do it, anybody can. I think you've got the quarterback, you've got the roster that gets you 50 more wins. So yeah, I'm gonna say bet it with Andy Reid.
Do you think he goes down as a better coach? Like he'll be remembered as the best coach of this era if he finishes with more wins than Belichick?
I think so because you had success in multiple places, and I think that is always. It's always a reason for success when you look at somebody and say, yeah, but he didn't just do it in one place with one quarterback. He did it in 2 places where he had like 4 or 5 different quarterbacks.
I would bet it, and I would agree with that. I think, though everybody will look at wins and losses, I think how you manage the room also needs to be in the conversation when we're talking about the greatest coaches of all time. And I think the way things ended for Belichick in New England, hell, they made a whole documentary about how bad a coach he was, essentially, and how he kind of ran Brady out of town and then didn't win without Brady, which, hey, I don't blame him there. That's hard to do. I think that puts a knock on him, and if Reid can have success with Donovan McNabb in Philadelphia, to move to Kansas City, have success with Alex Smith, get the right quarterback in place, and have continued success and keep him in the building, then yeah, I think he A, passes him, and B, passes him on the all-time list.
Agreed on both fronts, and I think part of that legacy will also be his coaching tree. I think there will be a lot of things that Andy, when you get the wins, now we look at the rest of the resume and we're like, wow, probably second to the Shanahan offense, the second most sought-after offense in the NFL for his era. Did it with multiple different quarterbacks, multiple different organizations, got to Super Bowls with both organizations, went to I think it was 4 consecutive NFC championships with the Eagles, and then did the same thing in Kansas City. And oh, by the way, winningest coach of this era, and was beloved by everybody instead of being a guy that was hated, and also didn't have any black marks in terms of the off-field stuff, like Deflategate or the Spygate, didn't have those controversies that surrounded him either. So, I'm going to say bet it as well. Alex, what do you got for us today?
Guys, bet it or forget it. Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels have combined more wins than all of the other quarterbacks taken in this upcoming draft.
Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels.
More combined career wins as starting quarterbacks than all of the others combined.
Man, I wish I knew where McCarthy was going to go, because I don't love McCarthy, but the reason I bring him up is because I think he's going fourth, which means that it's up in the air as to where he's going to be selected. If he went to Minnesota, I could see that going well because of the situation. Good coach, good receivers, decent offensive line, added to the defense this offseason as well. I'll say bet it because I'm unwilling to take the risk of him potentially going to like Denver. Yeah, I wouldn't.
But you are putting two quarterbacks in two, although I think Chicago is much better, but another one in a Commander situation that doesn't look too good for him right now.
You're right. I think the Bears could win 11 games next year.
I think the Bears are going to be like the Lions in terms of one turnaround. They're a playoff team.
Yeah, I think they'll be the 2022 Lions next year.
Yeah,
where it's
that's
like
what I mean.
Get close. They're super interesting, fun to watch, and then the next year maybe.
I don't think it's going to be the Houston Texans style. I think that this is going to be a 2-year ordeal.
Agreed.
Yeah, I would bet it because I think Caleb Williams is going to have a lot of success. I don't know about Daniels, but I could see where Caleb Williams can by himself have more wins than the rest of the quarterback class. Yeah. So that's why right there I would say bet it.
T-Bone?
Guys, bet it or forget it. With Thatcher Demko being potentially out for the series against the Nashville Predators, Nashville will pull off the upset over Vancouver.
Bet it. Thatcher Demko was the reason they won that game. Nashville was the better team. Demko made some unbelievable saves, and I think their backup is Casey DeSmith, if I'm not mistaken.
Spicy Pork DeSmith?
No, he wasn't the spicy pork guy, wasn't it? It was the third string guy.
Domingue.
Yeah, Louis Domingue was spicy pork. Casey DeSmith was the one that got hurt, so Louis Spicy Pork could get in there. I don't think so. I don't think Vancouver is that good of a defensive team to keep them in this race. And if you're Nashville, you smell blood in the water right now. So no, I'm gonna. We said Predators win the series, so I'm gonna bet this one. I think Predators win it.
Is Dakota Joshua going to be scoring 2 goals a game?
No.
Yeah, for the Blues next year in the playoffs.
Yeah, then I'm going to bet the Predators to advance as well. I think they will be the team that ends up advancing in this series.
And remember, you win 1 game in Vancouver tonight. You go play 2 in Nashville. Nashville was really good at home this season.
I would bet it as well. I think this is one of those significant injuries that can just change a series. And I don't just say that because he's a goalie. I think, like what Alex said, he was clearly the reason they won game 1. Mm-hmm. He's out for this series. And it's not like Nashville has they kind of do, but I trust their goaltending enough.
Oh, yeah.
To where I think that they can get through.
All right, guys, better to forget it. Jim Montgomery does Army a favor and returns as the Blues head coach next season. That is from the text line. We'll get to some from the text line now.
The only way I see him doing that is if they agree mutually. And if I'm Boston, man, I'm not letting you go. If you want to go, you can go at the end of this contract because we need you here. I'm going to say forget this. I think even if Jim does want to be here, which I know for a fact he loves St. Louis, the players loved him. If I'm Boston, you're not going anywhere, man. Look at what my roster was this season. Morgan Geekie was my second-line center, and I was one of the best teams in the National Hockey League. I can't let that guy go.
I'm going to forget it. I can't see them letting him go. And even if they said, okay, sure, you don't want to be here, that's fine. If I'm Boston, I'm not just going to let him go for nothing. If you're the Blues, you got to trade for him. And I couldn't see Army giving up an asset for a coach.
I would give you Justin Falk.
Oh, man. But
says no.
I would say forget this. I'm not buying this smoke of Montgomery.
God, would that be wild to shed salary cap and get a coach in return?
Unbelievable.
What a dream.
I'm forgetting this as well. I don't think it's going to happen. I just don't foresee it. All right, guys. This just came across the screen for me. Mike Silver, who's as plugged in as just about anybody when it comes to the San Francisco 49ers, says that a potential trade of Brandon Ayuk is still in play. He said, based on what I'm hearing from knowledgeable sources inside of the building, from high-ranking executives and coaches around the league, do not rule out a deal that would send Brock Purdy's favorite target to another team on draft day. Guys, better to forget it. Brandon Ayuk will be traded by the end of the week.
I bet it. I read something earlier, too, that said the Patriots have been vocally interested in Brandon Ayuk. Now, you're not trading the 3rd overall pick for Brandon Ayuk, but, I mean, if you draft Drake May and then you go get yourself a weapon like Brandon Ayuk for him, I'm going to bet this one.
Another GM told Mike Silver that he believes the 49ers will ultimately have to settle on a 2nd-round pick.
That makes sense. I don't remember what A.J. Brown got, but...
If I'm the first round. If I'm the Chiefs, I'm offering 32.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll trade him to him because they're not going to help the team that's the best in the league right now. But, like, if you're the Bills, for 27.
If you're the Bills, you have to do that.
Yeah, like, I don't know that they have the cap space to be able to make it work long-term right now. But, yeah, some of these teams that are in desperate need of a wide receiver, they should be calling.
Vegas.
I'm betting it. I think there will be a team that gets desperate and says, as the wide receivers start flying off the board, similar to when we saw Baltimore trade Marquise Brown, similar to the A.J. Brown thing, I think you see him
Here's
traded.
one. Better to forget it. Ayuk being traded is the downfall of Brock Purdy.
Forget it, because he still has McCaffrey and Debo and Kittle. 2 years from now, 3 years from now, when you see him get paid and he no longer has prime Christian McCaffrey or prime Debo Samuel, that's when I think you start seeing it. And I think he'll be fine, but I don't think he's a guy that can carry a roster. I think he's a guy that's elevated by those around him.
Yeah, I think you see him take a step back, but I wouldn't call it a downfall. And I would bet that you see Ayuk traded. This reminds me so much of the A.J. Brown situation, where it was, they can't really agree to terms on a contract. And you're looking at, with Tennessee, it really made no sense, where you looked at it and went, why the hell would you not just give him the contract he's looking for?
Yeah, that was stupid.
And then they surprised us all and traded him on draft night. I think that's what we're going to see. I think you're spot on, BK. I think it's probably a draft night trade where someone goes, oh, boy, all these wideouts have come off the board. Now we got to go get Ayuk.
Last thing here, better to forget it. At least one of Goldie or Gorman will homer in the next 5 games.
Oh, I'll
bet this one. Now, if you put Walker, you say Walker does that, would you bet it or forget it?
Forget it. He'll be in Memphis in 5 days.
Still a homer.
You think one of Goldie or Gorman will homer in each of the next 5 games? Like 5 consecutive.
Oh, no. Forget that one. Hell no.
I was like, wow, I can't believe how quickly you guys said yes to that.
I thought it was just in the next 5. He's hitting 1.
I knew I must have said it wrong because I was like the quickness with which you said.
No.
Yes.
Yeah, hell no.
No.
They went like, 6 games straight without hitting a home run. You think they're going to hit 5 in a row?
Bet it.
Of course.
At least one of them in each of the next 5 games will hit a home run.
No.
You just wait. Coming up next.
Is that a threat?
There was some news in the NHL last night that when I saw it, I immediately said to Alex, this is the one thing I don't want the Blues to do. We'll tell you what that is next year on 101 ESPN.
Coverage of 101 ESPN is presented by Onder Law Injury Lawyers. GetJim.com.
Okay, so you filed your taxes this year, but you know you have past IRS issues. And now the IRS letters are coming. Hi, this is Lance Drury with the Lance Drury Law Firm. Don't ignore those IRS letters. They're important and give you rights and deadlines to defend yourself. Waiting could cause you to lose those rights. Call the Lance Drury Law Firm now and let us help you get ahead of the IRS and defend your rights while you still have time. The Lance Drury Law Firm is located here in St. Louis, so take the first step and hire a tax resolution attorney. We've made it super easy to schedule your free consultation in person, or you can do a phone call and save travel time. Remember, IRS problems are legal problems. So before you send money to some out-of-town, high-pressure salesperson, give us a call at the Lance Drury Law Firm. Call today at 314-260-6120. That's 314-260-6120, or go visit LanceDruryLaw.com.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertisements.
All right, it's time to put together our parlay. Now, for me, actually today, Alex, I'm just going with a single bet. You know why? Because when I do that over on the Circa Sportsbook app in the state of Illinois, I'm getting the best odds. I can go shop around. They suggest that you do exactly that. Go check out FanDuel. Go check out DraftKings. You will find that the best odds for you are available at the Circa Sportsbook in Illinois. And for me today, Alex, that means betting on the St. Louis Cardinals. Yeah, I think they're doing it again.
Of course.
I think the Cardinals minus the 1.5 runs are going to get the job done. If I get that over on the FanDuel Sportsbook, it's plus 150. If I do it on Circa, though, it's plus 160. What that means? If you bet $100 on the Cardinals to win by at least 2 runs today, you're winning less money when you bet on it elsewhere than if you bet on it over at the Circa Sports app.
Yeah, well, and you heard my parlay yesterday. I do those big parlays parlays over on Circa because they're not limiting players based off of their winnings. They're making sure that you are getting the most money in return. The customer service is great. You're dealing with an actual person, not some bot over a chat. Use Circa Sportsbook Illinois for all of your sports betting needs. If you or someone you know may have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER or text ILGAMB to 833-234.
Hello, everybody. I'm John Rooney. Do you have an old car that's taking up room in the driveway? Repairs are costly and selling is a hassle? That's why you should donate it to Goodwill. Donating is quick and towing is free. Plus, you get a tax receipt and 4 tickets to a Cardinals game, compliments of the St. Louis Cardinals. That's a win-win. For more information or to donate, visit online at mersgoodwill.org. Must mention Cardinals.
ESPN Sports Center.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. The Cardinals back in action today as they look to take Game 2 of their 3-game set against the Arizona Diamondbacks. Tommy Henry will get the start for Arizona. It'll be Steven Matz on the mound for St. Louis. 6:45 will be first pitch tonight. The Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
So yesterday, Alex, there was some news that was announced in the NHL, and as I saw it, I thought to myself, if the Blues do this, man, I'm going to be so upset.
Why, I oughta.
The Buffalo Sabres announced that they're bringing back Lindy Ruff. He's the team's most successful coach.
Yeah, back in the 90s.
Did a lot of winning there, but it's a retread. It's one of those situations where you hire a guy and immediately the reaction for, I would assume, most in the city is, I was hoping for something new.
Or exciting.
And that's how half of these hires across the NHL seem to feel. It's so frustrating when you look around the league and see guys that have had 7 different jobs with 6 different teams over the last 10 years. It's just the same names that get recycled over and over and over again. Major League Baseball does some of this, where it's like the same guys that just move around across the league. If I could have one thing, Alex, that I would like to see from the Blues with their next head coaching hire, because, like, I don't know, maybe this guy from Denver is going to be great. Maybe he's not going to be. I'm interested in it, though. It's new. It's different. It's intriguing. Just hire somebody that's different. Don't hire Gerard Gallant. Even though I like the guy, don't hire Bruce Boudreau. And I don't think they're going to. But that's the one requirement, the one prerequisite that I have for their next hire. Don't hire a retread, man. Don't do what Buffalo just did.
Yeah, that's why, I mean, honestly, the way that I've, like, broken down the coaches that I want to see, we've talked about David Carl. That's the one that pops out. Some people would believe Joel Quenneville is a retread, but I still think there would be, although with the background with it, there's still some excitement there for people. And then you're talking about one of these coaches in the playoffs right now. To me, that's not a retread. To me, that's taking a big swing on a guy if you're a team that's in this retool. Buffalo is in the exact same spot to where they're drafting in the top 10. You're not a playoff team. You've got some cool pieces, but every single year it's the same story. And then you go out there and you got a guy that got fired by a team that was bad this year and was expected to be a Stanley Cup contender. It just doesn't scream, this is a big swing for us. And I do think, although it's going to sound odd, I do think Buffalo and St. Louis are kind of in the similar situation to where they've got some really good pieces. They've got pieces that are ready to compete, but you're probably waiting on a couple more. And that's the coach you hire. To me, that would be the equivalent of the Blues going out and hiring Todd McClellan. Mm-hmm. Like, I like Todd McClellan, but Todd McClellan is a guy that if you feel like you're ready to win a cup, you bring him in to see if you could get the best out of him. Not a team that's in the middle of wherever we are at and trying to take that next step. You got to take a big swing on this one in terms of a guy that's in the Stanley Cup playoffs right now that you feel like could be the missing ingredient, whether it's Keefe, Brind'Amour, or Jim Montgomery if he is realistically available, or you go after a guy like David Carl. That is something new rather than going to get the guy who has been on 4 different teams in the last 10 years and was always fired after year 3.
That's all I ask for. And I will say this, like, I don't consider Jim Montgomery to be a retread. I don't consider Rod Brind'Amour to be a retread.
Because they're having
Keefe
success.
To be a retread. Like, those are guys that they're almost reach candidates, right? Where you're like, holy cow, if you could find a way to hire this guy, that would be a dream scenario. And I would say that's the case for Jim Montgomery and Rod Brind'Amour. Yeah. Dream scenarios. Sheldon Keefe, there's going to be people that really like the hire. There's going to be people that say he couldn't make it work with that roster. Why in the world am I going to believe that he's going to be able to make it work here? Fair points on both sides. We can have a reasonable discussion about it. But those guys I don't put in this criteria. Gerard Gallant, he would be in this criteria. Yeah, Bruce Boudreau, he's in that criteria.
I look at it and I say, the reason that those guys aren't retreads is because they have had success wherever they've gone. And like Lindy Ruff, you can look at and you say, yeah, he's had success where he was gone, but it lasted for a couple of years. Like last year, we were talking about New Jersey Devils fans chanting Lindy Ruff's name, but out of the playoffs, a bad team. Out of the playoffs, bad team. You made it to the second round, and then you got fired midseason. In Dallas, he was there for 4 years. Playoffs missed, then fired. Don't get a guy who was going from place to place and only lasting 3 to 4 years. Craig Berube, when he was brought in, yeah, he did not work well in Philadelphia, but that was
one chance.
Yep. And sometimes the second chance. That's why I like the idea of a Sheldon Keefe. Yeah, it didn't work out in Toronto, but that's one place. Imagine where he goes the next time around. And that's why I look at Montgomery, Brind'Amour, Keefe, even the Joel Quenneville. They've had success where they've gone, and that means success could come to you.
So that is something that I did want to hone in on as well. When you look at Keefe, like, I think people kind of poo-poo his candidacy. And I don't know, man. Maybe the guy won't work here. Maybe he would be a disaster and a horrible coach. But I think there's a lot of coaches that would fail in that market. There's a lot that goes into being the head coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs. It's not an easy position to succeed in. There's a ton of media. It's almost like being the manager of the New York Yankees.
Oh, yeah.
There are some guys that they wouldn't succeed in that role. Like they would be better being the manager of, I don't know, the
Royals.
The Kansas City Royals, great example. There's certain players that would succeed more when there's less pressure on them. And so going into that kind of a spot, it's just not easy. So I don't know if he would succeed here or not, but I would be interested in finding out.
Yeah, I mean, like the way we're looking at Jim Montgomery, like Jim Montgomery had success in college. He had success with the Dallas Stars, and then look at what he's done with the Boston Bruins. Like I know Sheldon Keefe hasn't had the success at the NHL level, but we're talking about finding a guy who knows how to grow the younger players. Well, this guy made it to the championship round in the OHL when he was a head coach. We're talking about a guy who can figure out how to work with younger players. Well, he won a championship in the American Hockey League, and now he's gotten to the second round in the Toronto Maple Leafs. And you can look at it and say, well, he hasn't done anything with Toronto with Matthews and Marner. Yeah, but look at who his freaking goaltender was. Like, sometimes it's not the coach. Sometimes it's the players. We're learning that in St. Louis, right, when it came to Craig Berube being fired. I'm not saying he's the best hire. Frankly, I would take Montgomery, Brind'Amour, Carl above Sheldon Keefe.
Sure.
But if that's the option that's there in front of me and you're giving me option A, him, or option B, Drew Bannister, I might be more likely to take option A because of the success he had with the Toronto Maple Leafs.
He's Alex Ferrario. That's Tanner Hendrickson, and I'm Brandon Kiley. You've got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. We'll hit the rewind coming up next.
This Thursday night, the NFL Draft is on ESPN. Night 1 coverage starts at 6. The NFL lives on 101 ESPN.
Hi, it's Randy Carricker with Jim Olive, the Auto Loan Pro from AutoLoanPro.com. And Jim, you have that AutoLoanPro.com playbook. And I know a lot of people don't understand their finances, but that'll help them.
Randy, if you go to the AutoLoanPro.com today and download the free playbook, you'll have an opportunity to kind of understand the entire car buying process and what it does, not only today, but for your future. It'll help you understand what it takes to get in a nice, reliable new vehicle of your choice and get driving today.
Download the playbook from AutoLoanPro.com today.
Boys, the road to the NBA Finals starts now, and new customers on FanDuel can go on their own playoff run with $150. Kerry, it's really easy. All you have to do is place a $5 bet, and you'll get $150 in bonus bets, win or lose, to use during the NBA playoffs.
Yeah, Jamie, $150 to win or lose, as you said, sounds like a good deal to me. You can use it to bet on three-pointers made in a game, maybe the over and under point totals for a game, the first basket score, and so much more. So many options. The NBA playoffs, Anthony, are an exciting time, and I'm sure you're ready for it.
Hey, man, you know you're going to bet it. You know you're going to watch the game, so head to FanDuel.com/fast to get started. Again, that's FanDuel.com/fast to get started. That's our promo code. It's all courtesy of FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Must be 21 or older and present in Illinois. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus district is non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Let's run it back with a daily rewind on BK and Ferrario. Brought to you by Gloria Loom, your home sold guaranteed realty. Selling your home begins at GloriaHasTheBuyers.com.
Hey, if you missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It's all presented by
Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers.
With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Cardinals with a much-needed victory last night, and it came on the bats of Nolan Gorman and Paul Goldschmidt. Lars Nootbaar with a nice assist as well in that one for you last night. Alex, Cardinals win 5-3. They're 10-13 on the season. Did last night give you some optimism that this offense could eventually come around?
Optimism, absolutely, because Paul Goldschmidt is not going to be as bad as he has been, and that goes to show you Nolan Gorman is going to have that power like we've talked a lot about. The optimism is there that the offense is going to break out. The question or the pessimism I have is, are you going to do it consistently? Because you're still 3 games under 500, and just like we talked about with the Blues earlier this season, like at some point you got to get past that like 5 games above 500 threshold. You got to get above this 500 threshold at some point, and you've got an opportunity to have it be a rally point for you after that type of game, that type of comeback victory where the threat was you getting shut out again. The optimism is there that this offense is going to get right. But is it going to get right to the point where you go on a 7, 8, 9, 10-game win streak? Because that's what I think this team desperately needs.
Yeah, I definitely feel more opportunistic about the offense because the fact that the 2 guys that were struggling were the ones that came through in last night's game. But I'm still more on the cautious side as well. You know, I'm not going to sit here today and call my shot like I did yesterday with Gorman's home run.
Do it, man.
No, I'm not going to, because I could totally see them being shut out tonight and losing and not gaining any momentum.
Tommy Henry.
I don't want to buy into one game for momentum. I want to see this series be the one that launches them. Not just a game, but a series that launches the offense. The offense beats up Tommy Henry. They are able to kind of work over Jordan Montgomery just a little bit. Okay, now we'll have a conversation, and now I'll be willing to start to buy into momentum. I think tonight's a pretty big litmus test in terms of, okay, you were able to find that momentum in game 1. Can you carry it over against a pitcher that does not have good career statistics? Because you lay an egg here, I can already tell you tomorrow I will be ruling out that it was a momentum potential game on Monday. More of it was just a one-off.
Yeah, that's how I feel as well. You've got the advantage at starting pitching. You've got the advantage in your bullpen going into tonight. You should have the advantage with your offense going up against their pitcher when you compare like what you have available to you compared to what they have going up against the respective pitchers. You should win this game. You should. I said yesterday the Cardinals should win 2 out of 3 in this series. Now, game 3 was the one that I pointed to and said that's probably the one you end up losing. Jordan Montgomery on the mound for them, Kyle Gibson on the mound for you. There's a clear disadvantage there. You needed to win the first 2. Yesterday, it started out incredibly ugly. You were basically no hit for the first, 4 innings of that game. You found a way. You found a way to scratch and claw, and you came together, and you hit 2 home runs in the game. You need more of that. That's what this Cardinals team has been missing, because you look at the bullpen. We sang their praises earlier today. The bullpen's been great for this club, man. It's been really good. Had a couple of blow-ups with Giovanni Gallegos, but the strikeout rate is there if he can figure out his home run issues. Andre Palante really struggled a couple of times against right-handed hitters. Well, guess what? He's sent down. He's no longer a part of this. You've emerged with Ryan Fernandez as a part of it. Bullpen's been really good. Rotation has done their job. I wouldn't say it's been great, but they have done their job for the most part so far this year, and Sonny Gray has been every bit as good as advertised. Defense, much improved from what it was a year ago. Base running, better than it was a year ago. Your problem since day 1 this year has been your lack of offense. And I would even say this, you know what? They are doing okay. I know people get mad at me when I say this. Manufacturing runs.
All right, easy, Ollie.
Why'd you pause?
Just call it Whitey ball, man. They won't argue with you.
No, because then they're like, well, they're not stealing bases. Fair. You're 100% correct. It's not Whitey ball.
So they're playing just the game of baseball.
You're calling them productive outs is what you're saying.
Correct. When they've got a base runner on first or second and there is no outs, they do a really good job of advancing.
Now I'll say it without trying to use fan graphs and your stupid analytics stuff.
When they have a runner on third and there's less than 2 outs, they do a really good job of getting that guy in this year.
Well, how about you try and get that guy in without getting out at the plate and get on base?
Agreed. They're having a tough time putting the ball into play without the other team recording it out. That's been their issue. Or putting the ball over the fence. If they can do those 2 things, recording hits and home runs. If you could do those things, I think this team has a chance to be really good. I know everybody is still going to call me crazy for that. But, man, they've got all of the other stuff that is the foundation of a good team, and they've got the names in the lineup that would suggest they can put it together. They just haven't yet.
Man, I'm not even asking for home runs. I don't even need to be greedy. Just give me doubles. I'll take some doubles.
Slug, baby,
just
slug.
Sick of the walks and then hitting into a double play and be like, oh, that was fun while it lasted. We got that momentum and then real quick. I'd say they're not a fun team, BK. That's what I'd argue.
Not yet.
Not yet, but
Just
let me tell you.
This 7-game winning streak they're about to go on.
Great. No, it's not happening.
No, they're not going to do that because they're going to lose tomorrow. But they're ineligible. Remember, they're ineligible.
Why tomorrow, man?
Game 3. They're going to win 7 of their next 10, and we're going to feel like they're a pretty fun team.
Why don't you think they're going to? Why don't you think they're going to win tomorrow?
Jordan Montgomery's going to go out there and shove. You think he's not going to have success against this team
the guy
on
that
a
the Cardinals
getaway day?
Should have signed. Boy, I'd love to see a Michaelis versus Montgomery.
They're going to win 7 of 10 and be like 4th in the division.
Yeah, come on, get out of here.
You guys
All
be
right.
like, World Series!
We're productive outs.
Cardinals win tonight?
No.
I'll say yes.
Cardinals win 7-4.
Jesus, you think they're putting 7 runs up on Tommy Henry?
Yeah, this fool.
Rainy, cloudy day.
Oh,
they
man,
win this one
They're
1-0.
getting 3 homers tonight. Walker's getting 1.
No.
Goldie's getting 1.
No.
Donovan's getting 1.
Nolan Arenado's hitting 1 tonight. That's the only run that is scored, and they lose 4-1.
Looking forward to it.
Go Cards.
Tomorrow you'll hear what I just said in the open because it's all coming true. For Alex.
God, I hope it's a 4-1.
And T-Bone. No chance this comes back to backfire. And me, I'm BK. The Fast Lane coming up next. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow here on 101 ESPN.